don't think you learn anything from wins. You may if you're very analytical in your approach, even with fighting. As long as you know what went wrong and you can adjust, it's nothing like a loss, because now you can truly identify what went wrong.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Phil, it's been 3 years, man.
It has.
So yeah, what's new?
A lot.
So I gave a little bit of space there.
Yeah.
Because we covered your origin, we covered all that other kind of stuff. So
we progressed. The thing is like, I'm always trying to elevate. The last time we talked, and it was a good talk, by the way. I think that was one of my better talks. I think it's because of the fact that I feel like I know you without knowing you. You've been doing this for a long time. I think now, with what I'm doing with Merrick Health, with what we're doing now with the actual space we're trying to build out, there's a lot of moving parts. We're just trying to be strategic with our approach. But it still stays the same. I'm still a coach, still a leader, still work with my, trying to get my family to a good space. And
are there more moving? There's more moving parts, but are there parts that were removed to create room for the parts that you have now?
Absolutely.
Because we'll get into what you're working on now.
Yeah. So right around 2024, the end of 2024, I got with one of my professional boxers, and we did a 10-week camp in Vegas. And at the time, when I spoke with you, we were in a place called Deerfield Beach, which is right where I used to live. I grew up, and I had a location there that we were paying about $15,000 a month, in rent. And it was a content space. It was more of a personalized space for me to train my clients and athletes. But as I'm in Vegas, not doing anything there, I'm wasting money in this space.
Mm-hmm. So
eventually I decided.
So there was no commercial aspect to
No
it?
commercial aspect.
Okay.
No, I have a gym in Port St. Lucie, which is a little bit, more north, which is commercial, which is doing well. But this space was just draining my energy and my wallet. So at that point I go, hey, we need to make a change. We need to figure out what's going to be the best option for me to move forward. So I ended up, taking some time and really understanding what I need to do moving into a new direction.
Were you locked into that?
No. So luckily I was able to break the lease and get out of there, which was awesome. By the grace of God, I was able to do it. I don't know how, but we were able to, we had to spend a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, I needed to figure out what was going to be the best option for the business and for the brand. And so for me to be closer to my family, because even down there, I was driving still an hour and a half a day to be down there, maybe for one or two clients and then some content that we produced. But
walk me through that thought process, because when that's your place for content, because I know a lot of people that have the same type of setup that you're talking about, right? It's for their content, it's for their podcast, it's for their private clients and stuff like that. And then you're removed from it, right? So actually when you're removed from it, you're also removed from the income that would generate as well, right?
Yep.
So that's gone there too. And
well,
when you come back though, you still want to have content, right?
Yeah. So,
right?
But here's the thing.
Do you want to go back to other gyms and you see
So what I did was I knew that I could still do content in any other gym that I was affiliated with.
Yeah.
And the good thing about Florida, I have a lot of friends that have gyms. So having something in Miami, having something in West Palm, having something obviously in Port St. Lucie, which is my own gym. So I was able to still do the content. Now we have to schedule it a little bit more effectively because you have other people coming in. But for the most part, we were able to still keep rolling with what we were doing.
What about the private clients then?
So the private clients, then that would kind of transition for me to go do house calls. So now I'm going to their house, whether it be Timberland or, Kevin James or somebody like that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they have somewhere to train.
They do. So it didn't really matter.
Yeah, they don't have a old school weeder bench in their garage.
Well, as I left, I was like, let's just build out your space so you can have it there. And it's better for them anyways. It's just short on time. They didn't have to travel. I was able to travel to them, which was fine, and yeah, we still keep it rolling. You just got to find, you got to adapt, you got to evolve.
All right. So that also opens up a lot of your day, right?
Yeah.
Because now the travel's not there, the waiting between clients, right? That's not there, right? Because when you have your own place like that, it doesn't always work out to one person comes in after the other.
Yeah.
You could have a 9 o'clock a.m. client and 3.
Yeah.
Then you're sitting there picking your ass for.
Well,
right.
At that point, then we would just run content in between.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But now you still have this bigger gap open, right? So what did you start filling with that gap so you didn't become idle?
Yeah. So I started to put together more frameworks and systems because I knew that I wanted to make a transition into more of the health and wellness space. So I tried to formulate my frameworks that were allowing me to transition into this new direction. So a lot of my time was all about strategy and systematizing. And also having time with my family was great. So being able to be there, because I was, again, absent for 10 weeks at a time with camps and having to travel every day. Now I'm at home. I'm just working on things that I need to work on to improve the brand, to improve the business. So then that led into writing more ebooks, writing more, strategies for new planning, right? And so it gave me more time to really focus on the big picture.
Did this move you further away from fighters too?
Yes and no. At that point, like, I only typically work with 3 or 4 fighters at a time now because it is demanding, especially on my time and my family. So it wasn't like I was totally like, all right, I'm done with fighters, but it allowed me to be a little bit more intricate on who I actually took on. And so for now, my goal, and especially like doing things on my own, I want to make sure that, one, I'm still competing in some way. So that's when I did that 100-mile ruck and started to work into that. That was a big planning phase that I needed to go through and a preparation phase. So it took me 16 weeks to really prepare for that. That took a lot of time.
Well, didn't you do one first and then kind of screwed that all up?
Yeah, so that's how you learn from your mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So in 2025.
Well, before we get into that, with what was different about this camp that you had in Vegas than camps that you would have had before? Because with the camps before, were they more local?
Yeah. So I was, when you're with a big gym like American Top Team, they typically come to you.
Yeah.
This time, since he's a professional boxer, he had his whole camp usually in Vegas. So they hired me on to bring him out and really work everything. So I lived with him. So we were doing nutrition, obviously working the weight cut, working the training, working recoverability, and then organizing it with the skills coach. So this is where I was totally involved, meaning I was even waking him up, making sure he's going to bed on time. I felt like he was my child, literally.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. And so I loved it. And again, I love my fighters. It was demanding. It was fun. It was interesting. It was a new challenge, which obviously I'll take on. But it definitely took a lot of time away from what I was doing.
Okay.
Especially my family too as well. The good thing is that I was satisfied after the fact.
You have one. How many kids do you have?
3.
3. What ages?
So I have my 2 stepdaughters are 23 and 20, and then my youngest is 11.
Okay.
My son is 11.
Yeah.
So
away from 11-year-old, I get that.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So, but
shit, you're almost an empty nester, dude.
I know. We're waiting, man. I'm like, hurry up.
All right. To get back to where you were going, you have this strong anaerobic background. So where in the hell does this, I want to ruck for 100 miles come from?
Because of that. Because
what do you mean because of this?
I'm not good at it. So
obviously, you can't start with a 5K.
No, it doesn't get me out of bed. It's not something.
A marathon?
Yeah. I mean, everybody does that.
All right. All right.
So the first time I attempted it.
This is what I was going to say. You're not dumb. So you weren't going into it like, I'm just going to see how it goes.
No.
You planned it out.
I did plan it out. We had some mishaps. Scheduling got conflicted, and we had medical that were supposed to be on staff. And
forget about that. The training leading up into it, right? Because you're going from an anaerobic, specimen.
Well,
so it takes time.
Well, at the time, I was also doing a lot of hybrid style training. So I was still running. I was still getting my runs in every day. I was still rucking every day. Well, every other day, and my training transitioned into a more aerobically sound program.
So the base was there.
Yeah. I built the base for a good 3 to 6 months, I would say, that really helped me evolve into more of a, I'm not going to say endurance athlete, but I was able to do, 10, 20 miles at a time without having any real problems, any real soreness or anything like that. So it took some time, but the only thing that I didn't take into account was environmental issues, right? So when it came down to where we were rucking from Miami to Fort Pierce, again, you have weather issues, right? So you have rain, puddles, the whole nine. And then on top of that, my feet, right? Being able to take care of my feet, that's really what ended up causing the damage. Mm-hmm. And then not being able to properly fuel throughout this process and trying to rush it when I started. So to give you some context, my goal was 150 miles. And I was trying to do this in at least 3 days. So that means I would have to do 50 miles a day. But in the beginning of it, you're hyped up. So I'm thinking my problem was I went to it like a fight. And so right when I started the first 5 miles, I'm running this thing. So I'm doing like, I don't know, somewhere around 10, 11 minute per mile paces with 50 or 70 pounds on my back. Right. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling good. I was hyped up, ready to go. We get to 5 miles and my guy told me, you need to slow down, man. We're making good time. Right. But I'm like, I need to get 50 today. So mentally, and then my competitive nature comes out and I'm like, nah, I got this. All of a sudden I start to feel let me back up a little bit. So we're right around 10 miles and we're stuck in this narrow corridor type place where I had no way to get around this big, huge puddle. And I know it sounds crazy, just a puddle. Mm-hmm. This wasn't an ordinary puddle. This was like a monsoon, like it looked like a lake. And I go, damn, I can't go around, so I have to go through it. And I had my best shoes on at the time. So we're like, fuck it, gotta go through it. So we went through it. Now I'm ankle deep in water. And as soon as I stepped in, and I'm like, damn, this is gonna be tough. Because I knew as soon as you start to get those, when you start stepping puddles, obviously your feet are gonna get soft and then they're gonna start to blister. I said, as soon as these blisters start, now it's gonna be an issue. So ended up getting through that, stopping at a checkpoint, drying off my feet to a degree, but still trying to be fast with it. Dried it off, I had new socks, new shoes. Still, we're like, okay, we're good. I start walking and I start to feel the blisters start to accumulate. And then I started to feel the bottom of my feet rip apart. So I had silver dollar sized like holes in my feet from the ball of my foot to my heel. And every step felt like I was walking on broken glass. Now I'm at like mile 20. And it went from me going 11 minute per mile pace to like 20 minute per mile pace. I'm like, damn, I'm slowing down. Now, on top of that, right at this point, I'm about 40 hours no sleep. And I'm somewhere around 15 to 20 hours on my feet. So when we get to the first checkpoint, I could barely walk. So I took the pack off and I had to like tiptoe to a space where I could sit down. And I couldn't go to sleep because I had to wake up and go meet. So we had checkpoints where I wanted to meet with local fire department, law enforcement, and they were going to escort us through Broward County. Mm-hmm. So I'm I have a good relationship with the Broward sheriff. So he met me at 7:30. So I had to get there at 7:30. Now it's like 5 a.m. and I cannot walk. Like I can't walk regularly. Mm-hmm. So I called one of my guys. He wrapped me up in moleskin. We wrapped up the feet and it felt okay for the time being. And once you cool down, it gets worse. Mm-hmm. So when you're in it, I'm like, I just got to keep moving because if I cool down, it's going to be excruciating. So he kept moving and then the heat started to come. So this was in July, another environmental issue, right? And now I'm in Florida. It's humid. So it's like 98 degrees. And I'm like, damn, okay. So we're going through Boca and then we get to the end of Boca and I'm like, my feet are torn up. Now I lost like 6 or 7 toenails. And I was like, okay, I can manage this as long as I can deal with the pain. And I know that's not going to be like any detrimental issues that will come about. Like if I can't walk for another, 6 months, it's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can handle pain as long as you know that it's not going to be life-threatening,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then I go, okay, manage the pain. It's just a feeling right now. So as I'm walking, we're getting to around Delray Beach. So now I'm about 50 miles in. And at this point, every step I was doing probably like a 30-minute per mile pace. I was going super slow because every step was excruciating. We go over this bridge and they actually got footage of this. And one of my guys asked me a question and I needed to really sit in solitude at that point because I didn't want to be around anyone. They couldn't really feel how I was feeling. So I needed to be in my own space. And it allowed me to truly identify why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, all these emotions are coming about because you're in pain. You're thinking about your family. You're thinking about why you actually decided to do this stupid shit in the first place.
And you got 100 miles to go.
And I got 100 miles to go. So now at this point, I'm just dredging along and I'm like, damn, my feet are jacked up. I haven't had any medical advice or anyone look at anything at this point, up until this point. So we're like, you know what, let's go to the hospital. Let's let them clean up the feet so that I don't get, infection or something like that. So we go to the hospital and they're like, well, let's run some labs. I'm like, all right, whatever. So it's like maybe 2:00 in the morning at this point. And they're like, they ran the labs and they said, your creatine kinase levels are like at 10,000. So typically, you guys know, it's like, you do a training session, you may be at 300, 500. I was at 10,000. They were like, you might want to stop. Now I'm pissing blood at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, I don't want to be in rhabdo, which they said I'm already in it. I didn't want to go too deep into it. And so at that point I go, well, now I have a decision to make because now it's detrimental long-term. So I made a decision. I called my wife. She's like, you better stop. Because I have fighters, I have athletes, I have clients, I have a business, I have a family. I got to think like, okay, let's be more realistic here. So I was like, at that point, I had to stop and go, all right, I'll live to fight another day. Now I'm laying in the hospital bed thinking to myself, did I fail? And if I failed, how can I learn from this process? So at that point, I took the entire year to identify the issues that came about. 1, proper footwear. 2, having medical attention everywhere we go. 3, pace myself better. 4, make sure that it's in the right environment, right? So the time of doing this, maybe not do this in July, right? And then at that point I go, I need more time to prepare. So instead of doing like a few months, let's do a full block, 2 blocks to really get conditioning, not just for my body, but for my feet, to callus my feet for this process, because the weight wasn't the problem. I mean, it added on to the the feet being torn apart, but from a structural standpoint, I didn't feel anything. Like my back was fine. My traps were, they were sore, but it wasn't something that was stopping me.
Sure.
But I said, you know what? Instead of doing 70 pounds, let's do 50 pounds, right? And let's do this throughout a 5-day process. And I'll do 20 miles a day and I'll break it up into 10-mile increments. And so that was the plan going forward with the programming. So at that point,
now you have to present this to your wife.
Yes, that was an issue.
Yes, I'm like, we needed to talk about that.
That's an issue. So,
you think?
Yeah. So my wife is very hard-nosed, and she met me in my prime of my professional fighting career, right?
Yeah.
So she understands my mentality. So
she also understands why you had to leave doing that.
So she's like, are you stupid? Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do this? And she thought it was like an ego thing. And I was like, listen, if it was just for me, then I would not do it. But one, we were raising money for military veterans. That was something that I am passionate about. 2, I wanted to show people that you can fail forward. And then 3, I wanted to glorify God in that process.
Well, the first 2, she's not going to care about as you're having this conversation.
True. And so what I needed to do was break down the strategy. She didn't understand that I had a better plan. So once I broke down that plan of, I have full medical attention, we're going to have IV treatment, we're going to have Merrick on board, they're going to help me out throughout this process, and I'm going to do this in 5-day increments. after I said that, she said, well, that's different then. And I said, do you want to be a part of it? She's like, absolutely. So now she was less involved than the first time. I didn't even talk to my wife the whole time. Now I'm with her every day. So I was going to go home, rest, recover, get full sleep instead of 60 hours of no sleep. So I would go home after my 20 miles. I would rest for 6 to 8 hours, and then I would get back on the road. When I said that, that's when she bought in. So again, having a better strategy allowed her to buy into the whole situation. And then she got on board wholeheartedly.
Well, in that case, she can also see where you are throughout that whole process.
Yeah. And saw the progression. I would say saw the lead up and the preparation towards that goal.
So then how did it go that next time?
So we ended up doing 20 miles a day, 5 days, and I got 100 miles. Finished it up, and I would say anticlimactic to a degree, right?
Or isn't that everything that?
Of course, you know it. But I was satisfied, and we had everybody there. It was great, I crossed the finish line. We had friends, family. We had the whole Merrick team out there. It was awesome, So it was a good way to identify the limiters that I had for myself, and then fine tuning the details and overcoming the odds. So from a satisfactory standpoint, I was definitely in that state. Now I know that I can do more. And so my next thing was like, all right, so now I'm going to do a marathon a day for 7 days.
I've been training for over 4 decades now, and keeping track of all my training metrics has always been a big part of that. It wasn't until later on that I realized that keeping track of your internal metrics are just as important, if not more important, the longer you're in this game. Most primary care physicians, if you go in for any type of issue, they'll look for what's off, but they're not necessarily looking for how to optimize where your labs are for where you want to go. That's where Merrick Health comes in. Merrick Health does advanced blood work with medical providers around the world and a health coach who helps build a plan around your goals. I worked with Merrick to build a custom lab panel for this show. They have guided optimizations that can help you set you up with a health coach to be able to work through what your goals are, from the prescriptions to supplements, just the whole deal. Don't have to do that. You can just do the lab panels. They have options. You can find this at merrickhealth.com/table talk for 10% off your first order. One of the best decisions that I ever made was to partner with Merrick. So I highly suggest you head over to merrickhealth.com/table talk and get started today.
Because I did 20 miles, why not an extra 6? As long as I can prepare accordingly.
That's funny you say that, because I had a client back home in the UK who was a Gurkha originally. And then he came out and competed in powerlifting. He got like a world record deadlift and stuff in his category, and he wanted a change of pace. So his next step was to do the Marathon des Sables, which is 7 marathons across the desert in 7 days, right? That was it wasn't do a marathon. It wasn't, it was, I have to do the absolute hardest thing within this category that I think is humanly possible. And, I think for him, it was because he came from being a Gurkha, and you're used to that level of discipline, achievement, and effort that goes into that. And, and I mean this in no disrespectful way, for him, powerlifting just couldn't replicate that. So do you think you were battling a similar thing though? Like, you come off the back of fighting, and, I can't say from personal experience, but I can imagine there is going to be very little in life that matches up to winning a fight or being in a fight for your life, right? So it's like, well, how do I come out of that and find what's the small step down? Because you can't go from that to just like humdrum everyday life, right? So like in that context, a marathon, the chasm's too big, right? You need something stupid by normal person standards to actually feel like you did something.
You're 100% right. Like, there was nothing that filled that void like fighting than that. I had to do that. Like, it was something that was in me innately. Like, I had to push myself, push the boundaries to see where I'm at. And it made me a better person, right? It made me identify weaknesses. It made me identify that, one, I am human, right? I can get injured, but it put me in a position to where I felt that similar, I would say, uncomfortable feeling that I would like to get in order for me to grow. And so my goal was to adapt and to grow through the pain. And we did. So it was good. And again, like, I'm always looking to push the envelope. as much as I can in order for me to grow and evolve. You know, and you know this, you guys, like even with powerlifting, like you still have goals. And I think goals make life tolerable at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen what happens to athletes when they step away and they don't replace it with something like productive. Sure. You know, there's a lot of worse things you could have done than ruck 100 miles, right? So I guess perhaps the hope for your partner might be that these goals that tick the box for you just gradually over time get more sensible, I guess would be the nice way of putting it, perhaps.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's not in me. You know, I've always pushed the paces as much as I possibly can. And that's pretty much why I decided to start fighting too. You know, coming from, you know, playing football all my life, doing martial arts, I'm a competitor. So I don't care about maybe competing with you, or maybe I just have to compete with myself, with my past self to get better. And every time I look at it, but I also have to maintain some order, some obedience to a degree on my health and making sure that I'm there to take care of my family. So I have to be smart and more consistent with the approach now, because jumping into something without having a strategy, well, it's a recipe for disaster. And we found that out. So having a better strategic plan and planning that out accordingly with a solid team allowed me to grow and then win the situation.
Because you mentioned it was anticlimactic, and we can go back. We talked about this on the last podcast. The fights are the same way. Like you win the fights, and then when it's great, right? In a different environment because there's spectators and all the other stuff. But when it's all over, you know, it's not what you thought it was going to be. You know, winning the football game's not what you thought it was going to be. This is not what you thought it's going to be, which the default to that would be then it's all about the journey, right? Then you look at the journey and it's really not all about that either. You know, you're a man of faith, right? So how do you square that all up? Because you can look at those things and say, these are selfish goals, right? But they're not selfish goals if it's helping you to bring more people into.
Yeah. So that was the overarching plan, was to provide some level of inspiration to those that think that they can't do just 30 minutes in the weight room or in the gym or in the treadmill or something of that nature. If I can do 100 miles, you can do, you know, 10 to 20 minutes on the treadmill. That was the real goal. And so with that, it allowed me to live and work and prepare for others. Now, of course, it was something personal for me, but it allowed other people to identify their own weaknesses and go, man, if he could do this, why can't I just, you know, have a routine and actually stick with that routine? So that was the plan. Because if it was just for me, it wouldn't make sense for me to do this, right? Because for me, my purpose is to, one, know and love God and to help others through the gifts that God has given me. So I'm looking at the talents, I'm looking at the actual God-given gifts, and then the skills that I've acquired through coaching, training, competing, and it allowed me to identify what I need to do in order for me to get that out and provide some level of inspiration and motivation for those individuals. Because now they can compare, they can say, okay, I have the ability to do this because this person here did 100 miles. So anyone can do anything as long as they prepare accordingly and they put their mind to it.
So how did this change your training metrics, the key indicators that you would typically track, right? Because it's different in the anaerobic set, right? To where your max effort lifts, you know, max velocity, all this other kind of stuff. Those are they're important, but they're not as important because now these new indicators are going to come in, but you don't want to have too many indicators because then there's too much data that's getting all conflated.
Yeah. And you know, you get bogged down by the data.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you know, you can have great preparation, but it really comes down to being able to execute when the time comes. So I had no idea. I knew that I was going to be able to do 20 miles. And can I do that continuously for 5 days? So when I was able to identify, okay, let's just say my breaking point was around 25 miles. So I knew that I needed to tap out at 20 miles in order for me to do this continuously to get that 100 miles.
Yeah, but to be able to take that from 15 to 20, right? Different training zones are going to have to be approached in different manners. So how are you looking at your training to be able to make those adjustments? Because you can't keep just doing the same things. We know that, right? Are you tracking your different training zones and then playing with different metrics in there, or just kind of saying, screw it, I have to do this?
Well, yeah.
Because there's the coach and there's the athlete, and they're two different things.
Yeah.
You're your own worst client.
It was obviously, you want to control the variables as much as possible, but you don't know what could happen that day, right? So I'm trying to at least progress from a distance standpoint each week. So maybe it's 5 to 10%. Each week we increase the volume of that load, right? And we maintain that. So what it was, I'll give you the basic layout of like a microcycle. So 3 days a week, I would undulate the intensities, meaning I would undulate the weight, right? So I would go heavy, maybe it's 70 to 90 pounds for 15 to 30 minutes. Then I would do a lighter weight, maybe somewhere around 15 to 20 pounds, and I would go faster. And I would do that for 45 minutes to an hour. And then I would do a long ruck that's simulating what I'm going to have to go through when the time comes for the event. So I would do 20 miles on those days. And those were the times, like on a Saturday when I had the time to do it. And I would do the direct amount of weight. So I'd do 50 pounds. And then from there, I would increase my ability to, one, have better understanding of how I want to put my feet. So my gait needed to change. I needed to make sure that I wasn't overstriding. I needed to make sure that I was lighter on my feet, changing out the footwear too as well, to identify what I needed to have on and what I needed to change into. And then looking at proper, again, shoe wear, socks, right? Making sure that I wrapped up my feet accordingly, depending on if I did decide, or let's say, for instance, a blister came up, I knew how to adapt when those blisters do come up. How do I put the moleskin on? How do I make sure that my feet stay dry, right? So utilizing those and utilizing those tools have helped me too as well. From a progressive standpoint, that's what it was though, was adding on time and distance each week.
How did you navigate your absolute strength, or was it already at such a high level that you could regress by 20% and still be strong enough to be able to do what you needed to do?
Strength wasn't really the issue, right? So yes.
Did you pull it completely out?
No, I didn't pull it out. So I did at least 2 days a week of max effort or heavy efforts.
So what'd that look like?
So it would be, something I would work up to either a heavy triple or a heavy single, 2 days out the week for upper and lower. And the lower would be primarily something like a sumo, or maybe it's a box squat, something like that. And then I would do, for upper body, I would do more pulling motions, right? So it would be like a seal row, or it'd be like a bent over a pendlay row. And I would work up to a heavy triple there. And then I would just back it off and do accessories from there just to maintain muscle mass, right? Enough to where I can maintain posture, keep my strength up, make sure that, I'm not taxing my lower back, my glutes are strong, so on and so forth. So it was a lot of correctives, it was a lot of accessories, and then I would hit those main lifts and I would keep those consistent.
Now, are you keeping in your basic fighting stuff too?
As far as training?
Just foot drills, bags, and I know you're never going to not do that, right? Because all this adds up.
Yeah, so I had to taper off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the beginning, like let's just say for the first 8 weeks, I was still hitting the bag, doing bag drills, doing pad work. I was still rolling a couple days a week. Then I had to taper off of that and fully focus on the rucking.
Okay, so if that bag work, I'm just putting my mind in your mind, which is kind of a wrong thing to do. That's where you can really take out your aggression.
Yeah.
Your real alpha male can come out there. Yeah. It's not going to come out on a long ruck.
It's not.
Right? It's not going to come out on max effort work that really isn't really max effort. Mm-hmm. So how you mentally dealing with that time period, because it's got to come out somewhere.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to come out on your family.
No. So yeah, utilizing those drills and actually, I would ruck to the gym. So I would get fatigued to a degree, and then I would go all out in the gym as far as pad work, bag work, stuff like that. So it allowed me to still get that aggression out for sure. Yeah. But again, still working the system of what's the end goal is to be able to do that 100 miles.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying though, that I think it's part of this anaerobic athlete mindset, that little, you can flick that little switch, and it's like, I don't see that happening on jog or a ruck or.
But I'll tell you this, so I also did a lot of stadium runs. right? And I would put the bag on throughout. So we had the track. You would run the track. I'd run the distance of the track. So I'd do 400 meters. I'd take the bag off. I'd sprint up the steps, come back down, do a whole set, put the bag back on, and that would be active recovery. And I would do that for an hour straight, or, you know, however long I needed.
That's active recovery.
That would be active recovery. Yeah. But it was like, you know, 30 to 50 pounds. So it was right around that same weight. But I was able to get that type of feeling, right? Being anaerobic, being explosive up the stage.
No, but it's a really good metric to kind of let people know with where your conditioning level is, that an hour of stadium steps with a 50-pound bag or 50-pound vest is active recovery.
Well, it increased my confidence too as well, right?
Yeah.
So being able to do that in a fatigue state, to a slightly fatigued state, because you're burning, you know. So, you know, I wanted to fatigue the fast twitch fibers as much as possible, because I knew that was going to be the one thing that will go faster, right?
Yeah.
And then being able to cope with that in a fatigued state and be able to still work through the drudging path of me walking each step.
Now, do you think that's because most of the people that I know, active recovery to them would be intercourse that lasts longer than 5 minutes, right? So do you think that your conditioning level was higher than what it really needed to be?
No, I think it was right where it needed to be. You know, my VO2 max was sitting around 56. So that's very good for who I am and what I do. It started at 49. I blew it up to 56, which was great. My resting heart rate dropped from 60 to 46, I believe. HRV was solid. So I was obviously making sure that I was, you know, organizing my training based upon my readiness throughout the days. And I would use something like a Whoop or HRV monitor to identify that. So then it allowed me to adjust and auto-regulate accordingly if I needed to.
Now, is there still a part of you that looks at the very first challenge that you wanted to do, the one that you had to pull out of, and wants to do it?
Was it say it again?
No, because you went into that first one with the goal, this is what I was going to do. Then you had to pull out of that, reassess, and come up with a new plan. But is there a part of you that you get where I'm going here? That is like, at some time I'm going to go back and I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I knew that if I paced myself better, I could do this thing. So at 51 miles, that was a breaking point. And I don't think any of my team, the team that I had the last time wasn't with me before. So they don't know, like, it's going to be painful no matter what. I know that. No matter how strategic I am and how much preparation I go through, it's still going to be painful. So I was putting myself in that mind frame of, yes, be prepared to be in pain for a long duration of time. So I had to condition my mind, not just my body, to adjust and be able to cope with that stress for that amount of time.
But you don't feel like there's still some untaken care of business? It'd be like a fighter that you fight against that beat you, right? And then you make this comeback, but you never go back and fight that same fighter.
Oh, to do the 150?
To do the 150 in the same conditions.
I believe, of course. Like, my ego says yes. I want to.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
But then I have to be, you know, I have to be more strategic and think about other people too as well. So I said to myself, if I can do 100, let me just do 100 first.
So you've grown up, Ode.
Yeah. From a year, you know, and it takes, you know, you to fail to really identify that. I don't think you learn anything from wins. You know, you may, if you're very like analytical in your approach and you look at certain things that you messed up on, like even with fighting, even when you win fights, you're like, all right, as long as you're conscientious and you know what went wrong, what mistakes you made, then you can adjust. But it's nothing like a loss, because now you can truly identify what went wrong. And so that allowed me to grow too as well.
You mentioned a few times there, learning good foot maintenance, you know, like the moleskin, the shoes, the socks, and all that type of thing, which obviously is great. But how much do you think your fighting kind of prepared your foot strength and posture for that challenge? Because you're in a sport where being light on your feet is kind of pretty important, right?
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of people that get into running, rucking, and endurance sports that aren't coming from that background. And, you know, you can hear them running from a mile away. right? Like they're heavy footfall and there's a lot of impact going on there. So in those contexts, like, was there anything that you put in to improve your foot posture, your foot strength, or the like, was there anything that even you could do to make yourself lighter again on your feet that maybe you think other people are overlooking as part of that?
That's another thing. So I lost a bit of weight too as well. So the first time I attempted it, I was sitting around 210 and I went down to like 190, 192. I said, okay, I need to be lighter. Because again, I need to be lighter on my feet. Obviously, I have 50 pounds on my back. That's going to add that load. But if I can bring my body weight down and still stay strong, then I'll be able to do this more efficiently. Obviously, working in like low-level plyometrics, working in foot strength drills, making sure that, one, I have good hip mobility too as well. So working a lot of hip mobility, working a lot of, structural integrity for the posterior chain, strengthening up my core. Also, that works in with rucking too. Yeah. So when you ruck, you do strengthen up your core musculature. You're working the posterior chain. You're working conditioning of your legs too as well. And so I do like to throw, even still to this day, I'll throw in at least 1 or 2 days of rucking for an active recovery or just for like a conditioning perspective. But as far as, I never thought of it like it conditioned me from fighting perspective. You're working and moving with your bare foot the whole time as far as for MMA. So I think that did create a base, but working in those low-level plyos, working in jumps and hops and skips and bounds definitely did help from a plyometric perspective, increasing tendon stiffness and elasticity, but also maintaining foot strength and posture was the big thing. So that was the prime focus from a training perspective.
How about callousing the feet?
Yeah, so that's another thing that I did. And if you talk to experts, they probably would tell you not to do it. But I would use Vivo barefoot shoes. So I would use minimalistic shoes with no socks because I needed to callus them. I needed to make sure that they were going through some rough, and even walking barefoot too as well, on hard asphalt. So it allowed for my skin to really evolve.
Well, it's how do you go about doing that? Because a little bit of overuse, blisters, time off, then you get delayed. So you go until what point, then you back off.
Well, as soon as a blister starts to form, then
isn't that too late though?
No, not necessarily. So as long as I can, let's say for instance, when I did the barefoot shoe walking, it was shorter distances. It was faster paces. So instead of doing an hour, maybe it's 30 minutes, but it's fast pace. And I get to a point where it's not a formulated blister, meaning there's no raise, but maybe there's a soft spot. And then I'll taper off. Maybe I'll take a few days off of rucking and I'll still work the weight room and I'll still do some type of conditioning, maybe on the bike or maybe in a ski erg or something like that for the upper body. And I'll allow it to heal and then I'll go back to it. So
I'm just throwing this out because it was a treatment for my plantar fasciitis, but couldn't you just walk on gravel?
You can. Yeah. That'll work.
I did rock walking.
Yeah,
a lot.
It works, right?
Yeah. I did at least 1 or 2 days a week. We'd walk on like gravel or rocks or something like that. Yeah, that's a good idea.
What shoes did you end up doing the actual ruck in 100 miles?
So another thing was making sure that because your feet will get inflamed, right? They'll end up getting, especially from the heat and everything else. So I ended up getting some New Balance shoes that had some cushion but had some structure to it.
Sure.
So it had stability. And then I would go a size up and I would wear line socks, so toe socks, right? And that allowed for those, to spread out my toes, right? Because I would get blisters in between my toes, right? So that eliminated that. Then I would put wool socks over them to keep my feet dry.
Yeah.
So I had oversized shoes that were wide toe box, right? That had some support, but also had some cushion. And that's
how fast are you going through these?
So depending on the shoe, I would say within the 16 to 20 weeks we prepared, I went through 2 or 3 pairs.
Have you ever heard of Ultra shoes?
Right? Yeah.
Have you tried those out? I know those are.
I didn't really like them because they were stiff, and I wanted to have some flexibility because I'm in one surface, right? So it is just gravel, it is just street. But if I were to do some type of, let's just say, an ultra in different environments and different terrain, then I would probably use that. Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was like trails and stuff.
No trails.
I know they kind of
straight through the streets. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's cool.
So that's why I didn't have to really change anything.
Sure.
Right now, if I were to go from a different terrain, then it would be more changing up of the shoe wear.
Just to clarify something real quick, sleep is important. We get that. A friend of mine recommended that I check out the Chili Pad. For a few years, I've been using the Chili Pad, and the Chili Pad 2.0 by Sleep Me. It's a water-based mattress topper that works with your existing mattress. It cools or heats from 55 to 115 degrees. The nightstand remote with the Chili Pad 2.0 automatically kicks in when you get into the bed. The new 2.0 is quieter, the tank is bigger, the topper unzips for washing, and it's built with waterproof protection. Chili Pad 2.0 is designed and assembled in the USA and comes with a 2-year warranty. So go to sleep.me/table talk and get $255 off. Free shipping, 30-day trial, free returns.
The like the callousing of the foot, do you look back at your fighting career and wish you'd kind of done some of this callousing, body hardening stuff when you were fighting? Because you can do the similar thing to your palms and your hands and even the butt, your shins. Yeah, I know a lot of the time MMA fighters will like kick hard objects to tighten their shin or harden, but you can do it just about anywhere. Do you have any of your fighters do that, or do you wish you had done that?
It's funny because a lot of times these guys, and even with me, the first time I started to train barefoot, I did get plantar fasciitis. Yeah. So utilizing these things, and I have them work barefoot on the turf, and we'll do agility drills barefoot. So that does help. For the most part, there's not a huge emphasis on it, especially from the strength and conditioning perspective.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely would hold some benefit for sure.
How do you, getting just to the coaching side, because I'm sure now you're coaching, you have people coming to you for ultras, for advice on that, right?
Yeah.
And then you have that fighter side, and then there's the meat high side, then there's the gen pop, then there's the celebrity, so you have to be like 5 or 6 different avatars, to balance. So how do you manage all those different demographics? Because just the way you're going to speak to one's going to be different than the way you're going to speak to another one. What you're going to expect as far as work capacity from one is vastly different from the other, and it all has to be individualized. And now that you're getting into this thing with Merrick with the CEOs, there's another avatar that you got to be able to figure out. So how do you maintain who you are, right, to be able to communicate with all these different demographic groups?
And it comes down to their goals. It comes down to the personality that they have. If they're very A-type dominant, very dopamine driven, we have to, at that point, sometimes I have to taper them off, right? I have to pull.
Do you assess that coming in?
100%, yeah. So we'll use personality trait exams, whether it's a Braverman's test, big 5-factor analysis, an Ocean, Hexaco, whatever you want to call it, but that'll give me an understanding of who they are to a degree. And obviously we'll have conversations and really get to identify like what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then how do I communicate with them.
Well, that's interesting, because wouldn't a fighter change who they are the closer they get to the fight? I mean, if you're getting them in the off season, they're kind of like one person. I
would say they change based on their career. Right. So like in the beginning stages of their career.
They're hungry, man.
Hungry. And to
win.
And their goals are totally different when they're in their 20s, when they don't have a family, right? The goal is to be a world champion, to make as much money as possible, to create some fame for themselves. When they get to a level of elite status and they've been in the UFC for so long, now it changes. So their motivation, their why changes. Maybe it's now to create a lifelong legacy for themselves, or to help their family and to create wealth for themselves. So then now my approach to coaching and inspiring them and pushing them and cueing them even changes. So I think it depends on where they're at in their career, not as like, throughout a camp. Because typically fighters, they're going to be hungry no matter what. And there is no real off season, as you know, in fighting. So like they're going to have to be on, especially if they're in a camp or in a gym that they, even with sparring, is like a fight. So that mentality never really changes. It's just what is their why for why they're doing things changes.
Well, if they're in a camp though, because we all have to deal with the things that we can control and the things that we can't control. The reason you put them in a camp is to be able to eliminate a lot of the things that they can't control, right? To be able to do that. Yeah. Where these other demographics, they're not going into a camp.
Yeah, but we try to evolve it as if it is a camp. So, for instance, we have set goals, we have set objectives, and then each day is going to be predicated on making sure that they're able to do the thing as efficiently as possible. So having auto-regulation, having the ability to adjust on the fly, things of that nature. But yes, we'll have seasons for these, let's just say, executives or CEOs, because they're in a state, let's just say, for instance, they're trying to acquire a company, or they're in a killer mindset. Sometimes, maybe it's just maintenance on the business, right? And just maintaining operations. So there is seasons for every individual. And so we can pinpoint those seasons and then adjust the mind frame and the execution towards those seasons.
For those who aren't familiar with like the Braverman test, the Cloninger Temperament Index, the Big Five assessments, and what are you assessing when you do those, and what information does it give you?
With the Braverman's test, it's going to measure your neurotransmitter dominance. So for a lot of individuals, especially in the sport of combat sports, they're going to be more dopamine driven, right? So then that allows me to adjust my communication. So they typically like to have some variation, right? So constant variation, making sure that I'm giving them something to stimulate more growth, but also keep things interesting, right? And changing. When you're more neurotransmitter dominant, you may be more, let's just say from an acetylcholine perspective, they may be more conscientious, right? They may want to know the details. I may have to coach them up and show them exactly why they're doing what they're doing and reframe the situations. Let's say, for instance, with a fighter, if they don't know why they're doing certain things that will correlate over to the fight game, this will be very hard for them to buy in, right? So having some type of schema fit to where I can adjust the actual exercise to make them realize how this will correlate and have that transferability to the actual sport, then they buy in more efficiently. So now it's obviously buy-in, and it's also the communication side too as well. Sure. So let's just say from a Hexaco perspective, like, a lot of these guys may be open, right? They have their more higher level openness. So now they're open to new ideas. They're open to new methods of training, right? But if they're very conscientious, same thing with acetylcholine dominant individuals, and there's some type of correlation there, then I could go, all right, I'm going to show you exactly sets, reps, tempo, how to do these things. And we're going to be more strategic, but we're going to be more intricate too with our approach. So it allows me to coach and program effectively. Yeah,
sure. And how deep in your, when you're using that type of information, how deep into the system does that feed in? Like, we could argue that if you know their neurotransmitter profile, you know what type of training they're going to like, you know what type of communication they're going to like or respond. But you can probably also argue that we know what type of diet or nutrition strategy is probably going to be beneficial for them. We can probably know where their most likely pitfalls are going to be. Like, you've got a dopamine dominant person who's super competitive. You're probably going to have to maybe rein them in more than push them forward. Yeah. So like how important do you think that assessment is in your process? Because I think it's something that really gets overlooked a lot and can really help feed all these other areas of the coaching.
It does, and then it evolves, right? So again, people do change, right, in time, and they become, and let's just say, for instance, as young 20-year-olds, they may be more dopamine driven, but then they start to adjust and they start to fine tune the details, and now they do want to learn more. I saw this with Dustin Poirier. And it was the fact of like him growing as an individual that allowed me to really figure out what's the best way to coach that individual. Now, some guys just want to be told what to do and then to get after it, which is fine, and we'll do that. But the ones that want to learn, then it becomes a teaching day, right? And I'm trying to inform and educate them on why they're doing what they're doing and how this can benefit them across the board. And a lot of these CEOs and these executives are like that because they're in that position, but at the same time, they want to get after it, right? Yeah. They want to feel something. So it's highly important.
Do you find that there's a lot of crossover there with some of those because obviously Dave mentioned you're working with a lot of different demographics, but I can imagine that you take this young fighter over here, there's probably a lot of similarities on average with the demographic of an individual who wants to be a CEO. They're competitive and driven, but in very different things. So do you find that maybe there's more overlap than people would think?
We were talking about this yesterday. It was like taking some of those lessons that I've learned by working with high-level elite fighters and athletes to the executive world, because there is similarities from a mindset perspective. You have to be a killer in there in order for you to grow your business, in order for you to build a team. You have to be a leader. You have to be a leader for yourself. You have to create habits. And you have to create routines that allows you to stay focused and disciplined for execution. And then you become that level of motivation for those people that you're trying to build up. Yeah. Right. So you have to live the thing. And there is that correlation. So when I look at an executive, or I look at a businessman that really wants to evolve and be that person that people look for advice, for leadership, for direction, then I can understand it a little bit better, because I've worked with those individuals with the same mind frame for years. Yeah. So it is good from a programming perspective. Again, they do like details, but they also want variation, because they don't want to go in there and do the same thing over and over again, because it doesn't stimulate them enough. So constantly varying the exercises, methods, modalities, whatever it is, to allow them to still stay actively engaged. And then from there, we progress accordingly, utilizing numbers and making sure that, again, they're making decisions every day, all the time. So decision fatigue comes into play. So trying to organize their daily activities and making sure that they're in the right position to make those irreversible decisions in a less stressed state. Yeah. So then that comes down to, all right, what's your morning routine look like, right? I know that's the kind of...
No, not at all.
But what I would say is, whatever's going to set up your day to be clear-headed, so that you're not just reacting, and you're adjusting and making sure that you're looking at the big picture. Because most of my CEOs, my visionaries, they just want to look at big picture. They don't want to get in the weeds. So it allows them to truly focus on that, and then push aside anything that's going to take them away from being that visionary.
Well, hold on, because there's a difference. And this is where, when I see the executive training protocols and all the shit that you see on Instagram and all this other stuff, I just roll my eyes, right? Because a business owner is not a fighter, right? They're not peaking for a certain thing, right? Every CEO that trains hard, right? In our world, is getting their asses handed to them by some fat, out of shape fuck, right? That knows their game, and knows their game really, really well, right? So the argument can't be made that this fitness is going to create this better CEO, because it's not proven in the real world, right? To where things like the morning routine, that makes sense, right? But every operator is going to have their prime time of when they can think and focus best, right? Sometimes for some, it's 6:30, right? So it's like, well, right after, for me, right after I get up, like 5:30 to 8, that's like fucking rock time, right? Fuck my morning routine, because my morning routine ain't going to get the shit done that I can get done during that time that has to get done, which has to go someplace else, right? So it's, the physicality doesn't have to be like an 8, it's like at a 2. Right. But it's a 2 24/7, because they own the company. It never goes away. So it's like a fighter has fight times, right? They're going to be in the gym from this time to this time, to this time, to this time, to this time, to this time. A CEO or somebody that's running an organization and a business, there is no time. Right. It's all the time. It's all the fire can start here. Right. And it's like, fuck, I got to take care of this fire, but I got to take care of this.
But it's organizing priorities. Right.
Well, their priority is to grow the business. That's the number one priority.
Push aside anything that's not going to get them to allow them to prioritize the big picture.
Which fitness does not fall there.
It doesn't fall. Yeah, but it's an aid, right? So when you're looking at being physically fit, being physically active, it improves their ability to decision make better.
Well, I don't disagree. Like 100% agree. But I think that a lot of the people that work with these people are not these people. It's a different mindset.
For sure.
Right? When you have to put out fires 24/7, and you don't know when that next text message, and the text message may be something you have to address or something you don't have to address, but it's still always there. And where they need the help is where to create and carve out the strategic time, right? Because the admin time is what ends up taking a lot of the access time
Yeah.
with all that. But then that becomes, okay, I need to not do the admin so I can do the training, but yet I still have to do this admin at a later time. I mean, you run your own business, so you kind of get what I'm talking about. The same thing happens just at a macro level.
Well, that's helpful for me too as well, because I do run businesses. So I understand, but it's a non-negotiable for me to work out my body. Right. And it's not just body, it's mind and spirit too as well. So you have to carve out those times for yourself in order for you to get into the weeds. Because if you're not optimized, then your business is not going to be optimized. So my goal for any
But keep in mind, when you say that, you're saying that to people who have been optimized and built great businesses. And now you're trying to tell, you see what I'm saying? It's a shitty sales point to say that to somebody who's already built that business and you're working with that person. To be able to say, hey, look, you need to do this to be able to optimize. It's like, motherfucker, look at what I already built.
Sure.
It is optimized. You think I'm going to optimize it better by doing this? You see what I'm saying?
I get you. So here's the thing. When it comes down to what their limiters are, we have to showcase their limiters.
That's where I'm going. Is like, how do you help to determine and find the limiters?
Yeah. Well, that's where I have to take an audit on their daily activities.
Yeah.
And this takes about a week to 2 weeks, maybe even longer, to truly figure out what is the breaking point for not only themselves, but for their business too as well. So I do get in the weeds inside of the business.
I think you have to, because there is a lot of leakage.
Yeah.
A lot.
100%.
More than they know.
And so we can adjust that, but you can't do that while you're in reactive mode. You have to take yourself away from the actual, the drudgery of the war. Instead of being in the fight, you have to step out and look at the lay of the land, just like a general. So you can't be.
Well, I wouldn't say it's a war. It's sparring all the time. Like a war would mean heightened. You know what I'm saying? Where most of business is just sparring. Like the war is like, oh fuck, just got a lawsuit.
Sure.
Well,
look at this. When you're sparring though, you're working the game plan.
Yes.
Right.
But at a lower intensity, with more focus
and more frequency too. But you have to study film, right? You have to adjust. You have to drill.
Perfect analogy.
Do you think in many of these scenarios, I get what Dave is saying there, like, I've already done this. Don't tell me I can do this better. But is it sometimes more a case of like,
well, it's not that they're saying that.
No, I get it,
they're
but
thinking that.
I know.
Yeah. Is it more though? It's like, well, what if you could keep doing all of this, but not feel like crap in the process, or do it for longer, like because your quality of life is better?
Right, let me throw another caveat in there too, right? That you guys can help define, because I know these people, because I am these people. They don't know they feel like crap because they felt like crap for 4 or 5 years, and that's their new normal. It's not that do you want to stop feeling like crap? Because they're like, I don't feel like crap.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they don't know what feeling good feels like anymore, because it's been so long. It's been 5 or 6 years since they felt good. So you got, you see.
No, I get, and I think that's a really important part of it. Is like, you need to also make them aware. It's like anchoring RPE. Like, until someone's been at 10, they don't know what 10 is. And it's like, if you've been stuck at 4 out of 10 forever, you think 4 is 10. But I guess, and I don't want to speak for your approach here, but like, you got to give them something that gets them to 4.5 now. So it's like, oh, there is an upper ceiling that is higher. Like, I feel less like crap now. And then it becomes a question of, well, like, how far does this upper ceiling go? And if they're very competitive, well, then you can almost turn it into a game. Like, look, you don't know how good you could feel if you do all of these things. But I think if you look at it from the aspect of like, you can, what you're doing right now has the right end result, but what if you could do it for an extra 5 or 10 years? Like your top fighters, I'm sure sometimes it's not a case of you need to be more powerful. It could be just like, I'm going to keep you held together for longer so you can fight for longer or more frequently,
Yeah. And that's where we step in and go, listen, you're working at a high level, but it's just like saying, why wouldn't you want to get 1% better? And what does that 1% look like? And so we look at these metrics. And we look at HRV, we look at morning heart rate, we look at stress accumulation, and then we try to organize the schedule appropriately so that they can understand that they have more in the tank than what they're actually getting. You're a little bit different because you've already pushed it at a high level on a performance side, right? As a power lifter and as a business.
No, I'm coming at this as somebody that hasn't trained, say, in 10 or 15 years since high school. Right.
So they don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
And so what we have to do is make them realize what they're missing. What is that limiter? It doesn't have to be just physical. It is a psychological approach too as well.
Well, big time, because if they're working typically 80, I mean, it depends how you want to define work, right? Yeah. So if they're on call 24 hours, it's 24 hours. And if you say, well, we need to take, 4 hours a week to be able to do this, all of a sudden it's like, oh, brain break.
Yeah.
I can't take 4 hours a week away from this here. Right. Because if I do that, I'm losing money here, but then I'm putting money out over here. So that's a double loss. You see what I'm saying? So
they have to see the return, right? What is the ROI of their time, right? What is their, return on time that is going to allocate towards growth, not just for themselves, for their business too as well.
Well, it may be more question for Mike on the next podcast, but they need to see what could happen, right? They continue at this pace, right? And then all of a sudden they can't because they're in a hospital for 2 weeks, right? Even though they're still going to work in their hospital bed. But if that happens, then they're more than 2 weeks behind because of the heart attack, the stress, the anxiety, or whatever is going to end up hitting them. Because most of the top business owners I know at some point in time have been hospitalized because of anxiety or something like that, where that forces them to take that time.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so it's
just
that would be the angle I would go. We live in some crazy times right now where there's not a day that I don't go on the internet and I see some BS crap about this research study or this research study. This isn't new. I've been in this industry for 4 decades. One thing that's helped me is 8 years ago, the mass research review started and became a godsend. The mass research team are professional researchers that are also meatheads. So they've done this great job of being able to take all these topics and put them into this research review that I get every month. I'm excited to partner with them. I spoke with Eric Helms about this on the podcast. It's simple, it's easy. They're offering a 20% discount to all podcast listeners. The code is elitefts20. When you join, you get the research review, which is going to be sent to you every single month. That has 7 to 9 articles in there. The archive, which is 1,500 articles, thousands of videos. Just head over to massresearchreview.com and use the code elitefts20. Link will be in the description.
Well, I like to look at predictive analytics too as well. Like, okay, look at your diagnostics.
Yes.
What does your labs look like? And then from there, you need to make a change. Otherwise, you are going to be put in the hospital, and then that's going to be a detriment to your business as a whole. So you keep running yourself into the ground, you're going to dig yourself into a hole you can't pull yourself out of.
Well, it's like powerlifting. Like you can either put in deloads strategically, or you're going to get hurt. And you're going to have a deload put in for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And again, constantly evaluating the system each and every day too, as well, to adjust on the fly. So if you're traveling or something like that, you still want to maintain as much routine as possible. Obviously, it's impossible to do it directly how you would do it every day. But if you can have some type of objective indicator to identify if you're ready to go full go, if you're in the green and ready to hit it hard, or maybe you need to taper off maybe 15 or 20%, but it allows us to still progress without digging yourself deep into a hole.
Do you find having those objective markers makes the buy-in easier then as well? Though, because like we can talk about perception there, where like the person is adamant they're fine, but they're not. There's just their definition of fine is very different, right? But if you have these objective markers, you can say, you can tell me whatever you want, but X, Y, and Z says that you're lining yourself up for a heart attack in 5 years. So as a coach, then, does it make it easier to start getting that initial buy-in when you have that other stuff backing you up? Yes and no.
And the objective indicators do come into play. But at the same time, they're like, I don't care what it says.
Sure.
I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
And I had to.
No, I get it, because the power lifter would be the same way.
Yeah.
I mean,
if fighters
the same way. It's like, fuck it. If I die, I die.
Yeah. Yeah. But then you start to understand and correlate the feelings too as well. So you have a subjective indicator that now they can understand, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. Yeah. This is why I'm brain fogged. This is why I can't, push a thought through jello. Right. It's just like, the objective indicator showed me that I'm in the red, right? And why am I in the red? So it allows them to identify it's not just you, it's not just your mind frame, it's not just you're losing it, but it is an actual physiological issue.
Well, I think there's another way to go at that to where as we talked about the fighters and all the other kind of stuff, it's maybe if they have a family, they'll pause and think about the family. But if it is a CEO, they have employees that depend on them. Right now, if they're not there, or if they're out of work or can't work for a certain number of period of time, it's not just them that they're hurting.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
It's the people that are going to report to them that are not going to know what to do. And then when that starts to crumble, then all the people under them start to crumble. And then the business, it's more than just them.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
To where when we can make that contrast to the lifter, but the lifter, it's just, when as a lifter, it's just me, like, fuck it. If I die, I die, you know, whatever. Yeah. But now there's responsibility of all these other people, which that may be that way in.
Yeah. You have to be very selfless, especially being a leader. Right. So leading by example too, as well. And then that correlates over to the entire organization. If they see that leader taking into account their health and wellness and their ability to perform and be optimized on a high level, then that trickles down to all the other executives and directors and people that are working inside their business. So now they start to be more optimized. So you're not only working for yourself to improve yourself, but you're improving the foundation of your organization and creating a new culture and an environment that allows them to be quote unquote optimized.
So what are the main metrics that you're looking at if it's through what you're doing with them, not the labs, let's just say in training? Where do you want to find a baseline?
I want to hire enough VO2 max, right? Because that's going to help us force longevity too as well. I do want good strength qualities, right? So even with a grip strength test or something along the lines of that to showcase that they have some strength. And again, we want to make sure that they're able to produce some type of power coordination control of their body too as well, because that's going to stimulate their brain, right? Moving in different directions and multi-directional patterns stimulates the brain, agility, even doing like power drills, right? Being able to produce force fast. That's an indicator of longevity as well. It's actually higher now than strength, right? So I'd rather have better coordination, better athleticism built in, so now that they can move their body, feel more appropriate in their own state, and then be able to adjust their thought process too, because now I'm making them think about it from a kinesthetic perspective. So now they have to orientate their body in the right ways, and that allows them to be a better decision maker, right, in their business, but also solve problems on the fly. So reactive things like, let's just say, for instance, I'll throw different cognitive drills at them where they have to, let's just say, memorize a certain number line. So let's say, okay, you're going to have to memorize 5, 3, 1, 6, 7. Then they'll do a max effort lift or do something, physical, and then have to tell me what those numbers are. Sure. So then they're staying tapped in, even when under fatigue, even when chaos is around them. Sure. So you need to have strength and order.
Do you think the martial arts specifically have great application there? Because, if you're trying to function at a high level in terms of cognition, like your enemy is synaptic pruning, which is you're getting rid of memories and skills, right? And the best way to blunt that is to learn new skills. And like, if you start BJJ or whatever for the first time, like, how many new skills do you learn every month? Like, so it's you add this skill set over here, but it helps you build this skill set over here. And I don't think there's enough cross-talk between those. Like, I think, and again, I might be speaking out of turn here, so I apologize if I'm, but I think in the martial arts world, actually looking at improving cognition and intelligence is incredibly helpful because you remember more, you react faster. So, but also then on the business world, doing things like, it doesn't have to be martial arts as such, but lots of different skills in it could be jumps and throws, whatever. Challenging new skill sets actually helps your brain learn other stuff better. Yeah. So do you play that into your thinking with your CEOs and things like keep them learning skills so that they can stay sharp?
Yeah, because it allows them to adjust and learn new things inside of the thing that they do best.
Yeah.
So creating some tension, creating some friction so that they have to adjust. And that allows them to evolve as an individual. So these problems that they have to solve inside the business is nothing compared to maybe not getting choked out on that day.
Exactly. Right. But I think that, to go back, might be the in with your CEO.
There's another in too. I'm giving you guys all kinds of ins here, by the way. There's another in as well, because the people that are going to be able to afford the services, right, have already built, somewhat of a base.
Yep.
So if you ask them when you were building that base, like after you founded the company, they were younger, so they're healthier, right? If they did used to train, they were busting their ass, they were training hard. So during the hardest years, those growth years, they were training, they were in better shape, and they were healthier. Then it gets to a certain point where it gets bigger and the workload gets bigger. And then they slowly start training a little bit less because their time demands are getting pulled, over into that other realm, right? To be able to fit those time demands over there, right? They've already done everything. That's how they got there, right?
Have they done everything though?
In some cases, yes. And a lot of cases, no, they were just younger, right? And when you're younger in your 20s, you're going to be healthier than when you're in your 40s.
Warrior state, you're catching.
Yes, right? You haven't become so deconditioned that it's a complete mess, right? But it's harder to get there than it is once you're there, right? Anybody will tell you that. It's brutal. The stress is brutal. Everything's just brutal to be able to get there, right? So in my case, I'm still fucking competing. I'm training. I'm doing all this other kind of stuff, right? And so it's kind of contradictory for me to be able to say, oh, that wouldn't help me now, right?
Exactly.
Because I was able to do it then. I just got pulled away because of these other things. But was it really those other things that made me get pulled away, or were there other distractions that made me get pulled away? Too much time being allocated, I don't know, fucking scrolling and watching TV or whatever it's going to be to be able to do that. But it's kind of opposite of the training, because in training, what it took to get you to a high level isn't what's going to take you to get to that next level. But we're not talking about the same level of training and conditioning here. No. We're just talking about conditioning. The conditioning that got you from here to here, right, is the same conditioning that is going to take you from, actually should be more, to take you from here to here, right? They've already seen it. You get where I'm going? It just faded away because it wasn't prioritized, because they're married now. They don't have to go out. They don't have to look good. I mean, all the other variables that may have kept them in shape.
Does that, as an individual that is looking to progress every year, every day, really, at the end of the day, I think you have to have still have that mind frame of I still need to learn more. I still need.
Well, they do business wise,
sure, but that's one aspect of their life, and so if you don't cover all these aspects, you're missing a huge component of your happiness.
I know, but it's like a fighter trying to sell them on strength and conditioning.
Yeah,
right.
But then you correlate it.
Yes.
So how do you reframe what you're doing inside this weight room, or maybe doing some type of plyometric drill that is going to allow you to be a better business owner?
Yeah. You see what I'm saying, though? It's.
I think there's also, though, there's sometimes an adaptive process that maybe they don't even realize is going on. What I mean is, let's take you with your businesses now. Your workload now probably would have floored you 10 years ago. In the same way that, like, when you're in high school is the hardest thing you've ever done, right? You're right. But now you look at high school like, Jesus Christ, what a vacation, right? But they don't know they're going through that adaptive process. But you can kind of frame it like, well, look at you 10 years ago. You were maxed out then too. Now look at you. You've made this giant stride forward. What if you could do that again, right? But what you got you from A to B being where you are now, is probably not what's going to get you to C. Like, you're doing all those things probably pretty well, otherwise you wouldn't be successful. But what if C is you still being maxed out, but doing twice as much, or 50% more, or feeling better, or all these other things? Why not strive for that? It's kind of hard. It would be hard not to go for that, right?
I think that a lot of times, and this depends on the person too as well, like somebody who's been training that continues to train and still can run businesses, it's just second nature. Like, it is a part of the routine. It's like brushing our teeth.
Sure.
But the ones that stop doing it and then fully focus and go all in and then disregard their health, that's the biggest problem that I have to get them back into the situation.
Well, that's the market I'm talking about, and that's where I see the huge disconnect with the marketing that's out there, right? Because the people that are doing the marketing that are out there come from the fitness field. They have this background. They make all these general assumptions that kind of fall out there, but it's opportunity, right? Wherever there's a gap, there's an opportunity, and that's what you're trying to fill here with Merrick, right? And where that isn't in the way most people are presenting it. Right. Because they're trying to present it like your fighter, who's a world champion that's never trained heavy with weights, train weights and you're going to be better. And they're just going to buy into it with the fucking 60-second clip. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, when we're talking to these individuals, we're getting an understanding of who they are first. So it does take a good amount of time. It takes us weeks to really dissect the issue. So it may not be like, I don't care about looking a certain way. I just want to feel good. And I want to be able to make decisions that aren't going to bog me down and still be in a good mind frame. How do I do that? And so from there, I start to look at, all right, let's look at your sleep quality. How many hours of sleep are you getting? Are they rough? Are you waking up in the middle of the night multiple times throughout the day? That goes in hand with the diagnostics too as well. Are they actually physically or physiologically able to do these things that they've done for the past 10 to whatever 15 years and do that continuously for another 10? If they can't, then we have to make an adjustment. And so it's not just about the physical training.
Oh, no. Here's another one for you guys to kind of go into and to elaborate on. When we train, our ability to be able to recover from one heavy set to the next heavy set is a trainable quality, right? If I'm doing 80% for 5, right? If I'm really out of shape, it takes 10 minutes to be able to recover. But if I train that quality to where I can do that and then do the next set of 5 within 2 minutes, my ability to bounce back is become way higher.
And how would you train that quality to be able to recover?
Well, now we're going to put this over into the business owner and that type of field. If a stress indicator hits you, right, and it's not that big of a deal, how fast can you forget about it? Instead of let it linger, or a lawsuit comes in, right? And instead of letting the lawyers handle it, it's in your head, right, for 3 or 4 months. Is it a trainable quality? I already know the answer, by the way, but I want you guys to elaborate. Is it a trainable quality that you're going to be able to just, okay, deal with it, forget about it, go on to the next thing? Because that's huge, right? Because the ones that can't forget about it, move on to the next thing, spend 3 or 4 hours default just going to emails, just doing admin work instead of dealing on the main thing that they have to deal on because their head's still occupied with something that really isn't that important, but they've tricked themselves into thinking it's that important. So is that a trainable quality?
Well, it is,
this is psychological.
Yeah, but I do think that can tie into the training as well, because like for a lot of the time, I hire Phil to train me 2 or 3 days a week. He's going to push me to whatever my limit is at that moment in time, right? Because he knows me well enough and he's a good coach, whatever, right? So when I'm on that limit in that training session, am I thinking about those things? Probably not, or at least it's considerably, it's absent to some degree. Like I'm going to be worrying a lot less about it because I'm worried about, I've only got 30 seconds of rest rest, my heart rate's 150, I'm drowning, whatever.
It's a distraction.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good distraction.
So there's that, I think, but I think then also, I don't know about your approach here, but I think, you've talked about like morning routines and stuff like that. I think like teaching them to like do breath work or meditation or anything where they actually learn to switch off, even if it's for 2 minutes. Like, and sometimes, and maybe this is where a lot of those Instagram marketers are going wrong, perhaps, is like, sometimes you got to be brave enough to just aim really low and like accept that this is where you're at. And like, no one's going to give you a pat on the back because you spent 5 minutes in your garden breathing. You know what I mean? But like, it's a step in the right direction in the same way that
some
like
bounding and
sure. Or like, exactly. Yeah. Or, you just say, right, okay, well, week 1, I want you to just take some ketones and alpha GPC every morning. Like give your brain some fuel. And then, it might be like you get an extra half hour in the day before you crash or whatever. But I think those things are totally trainable qualities. It's just, are they willing to do it? And I think a lot of the time you can get that buy-in pretty easy just by doing a couple of minutes of the day of whether it's like a guided breathing exercise or whatever.
I'll tell you,
please do. Yeah.
Most of my executives now love the routine. Yeah. They love to have something structured so that they don't have to truly think, and it sets them up for success throughout the day. And then it allows them to make better decisions or delegate those problems to somebody that can handle it without having them get bogged down on the day-to-day process. So when it comes down to conditioning their mind frame, it's being comfortable enough to delegate and find the right avenue to adjust and bring them to a position to where you don't have to worry about these smaller details.
You're being lied to about strength training. I know because I've been watching this happen for over 40 years, and it's gotten worse, not better. When I got online in the late 90s, the people that were being sold this crap were the same people that I grew up and trained with. Serious lifters, coaches, and people who just wanted to get strong. So I started writing articles and answering questions. My wife, Tracy, set up the business and we borrowed $1,000 to put up a website and go to work. That was 1998. Elite FTS was never about building a brand. It was about fixing a problem. The equipment, the articles, the coaching, all of it exists because the people who needed the real information deserved better than what they were getting, and they still do now. If you train, if you coach, if you've ever been handed something that didn't work by someone who didn't know what they were talking about, Elite FTS was built for you. Well, if it's a smaller business, it's not about delegation.
If it's a smaller business,
right?
yeah.
It's about moving it to a different time block.
Yeah,
right?
sure. Prioritization.
Yeah, so let's say on Thursday from 2 to 5 is when they deal with this type of shit.
Yeah,
Just
scheduling.
delegate it to that block.
Yeah,
right.
And that could
move
be
it there.
Same thing with delegation. So like, I'm not just saying just give it to somebody, but even
well, I'm putting that out there because a lot of the people that have businesses now don't have large businesses to be able to delegate. And delegation becomes a real dicey word to a business owner because I may have 8 different tasks that I really don't want to do, but I need to I should delegate it to somebody. Well, first off, to whom? And then how much is that going to cost me? Because I guarantee it's going to cost me way more than the 5 minutes it's going to take me to actually do it. Right? Because people flip that and they flip it and they fuck it up all the time. And every business owner knows I'm fucking right. Yeah. It's like delegate it out because your time's worth more. Right? No, my time for 1 hour is not worth fucking $60,000 a year for somebody to do some shit that might only take 6 hours. It's not, right?
I think in that scenario, dealing with the decision fatigue is big. Like the more decisions you can take away, like a lot of the time, again, your experience may well differ here, but like sometimes like, for example, with the diet, the more simple you can make it, like here's your meal prep company, whatever that deals with this.
Yes.
You don't have to cook. You don't have to think about what to eat. Like there's a reason a lot of like CEOs have the same outfit for every day of the week, or right? I don't have to choose.
This is huge. This is huge.
No, so how can we make it so you have less decisions? Your entire training program is written out with like sets, reps, RPE, like nothing is left up to you because you don't want anything.
That's why these guys will hire chefs. That's why they hire trainers. That's why they hire sports psychologists sometimes, right? Sure. To allow them to not truly have to think about the minutia. And still, like with an individual that is at a high level in the organization, let's just say they're a business owner, you need to identify who those good people can be to allow you to scale. So it becomes, that's the decisions that you have to make.
Well, they have to be able to do that. This is kind of where I was going with that, being able to recover, from the adversity or the training set and all that. They have to be able to make non-emotional decisions, right? That's a critical factor, right? And there's the breath work, the medication, journaling. I mean, all these things are huge. Taking all the things that can be scheduled and controlled, off the plate kind of allows for that to be able to play in there, because an emotional decision, the wrong one it's expensive, man.
Well, think about, you got reversible and irreversible decisions, right? A reversible decision can be hiring on a contractor to do a job for a couple months and then they can get out, right? But something that's irreversible.
Maybe sometimes the contractor takes, 6 months. It should have taken 3 months.
Well, you can still cut them. You can still cut them. Right?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is it's not going to be totally detrimental. You're not going to lose the business off of this decision. An irreversible decision is probably bringing on a partner.
Ooh, let me flip you back, because it goes back to the mindset I was talking about. A situation like that happens, that entrepreneur may think, I'm going to lose my business from this. Because the reason why they're an entrepreneur is because they're paranoid as fuck.
Sure.
Right? And this is where the mental aspect comes into all that.
That's
right. You get what I'm saying?
Experience does play a role in that too as well, and going through those issues and allowing them to identify, okay, is this a big problem or is it not a big problem? So that does come down to, all right, how long have they been in business?
But they can't do that if they're in shit shape.
Exactly.
Yes. Right?
Or in a bad mental state.
Which can be correlated to being in shit shape.
Exactly.
Right?
You feel bad, you look bad, you're going to do bad.
Yes. And the best course, and another sales pitch, right? Another thing to help with the marketing of all this is ask them how good their decision-making process is at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they got to the office at 5, right? Every one of them are going to say, I wish I would have pushed it to a different time.
Sure.
So if it's not as sharp then as it was at 5, why?
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying we even need to make it sharper.
We talking 5 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yes. Yeah. When they start at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying you present this because anybody that has a business is going to say, no, my decision making is not going to be as good at 5 o'clock PM when I started at 5 a.m.
Or correlate the decisions that you have to make into a time frame, or even like how many decisions are you making that day?
That's why they're not. So the question would be, wait, what time does it begin to drop?
Yeah.
2:30.
Usually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we get you a better condition, what is it? 3?
Or better
It's
sleep.
trainable is what I'm saying is it's trainable.
Super trainable. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just making sure that you have these interventions.
Yeah.
Right. Identifying even with nutritional guidance. Right. So like, okay, for instance, we were talking with a CEO yesterday and he said after 3 o'clock, I'm like dead. Right. And I'm like, well, what are you doing throughout the process of the day? He's like, well, I'm on calls all day long. And you're in front of the computer doing Zoom calls.
Yeah.
Right. What are you doing? Are you staying hydrated? Are you taking in electrolytes? He's like, you know what? I probably should be taking in a little bit more electrolytes and water. I was like, that's the fix right there. It's just a small change. And it's just that type of intervention that allows them to be productive throughout the entire day. And listen, if it's at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock and you're like, I'm tapped out, then call it a day and then save it for the next day.
Here's something I should probably put out there for those that are listening to the podcast. Everything that we're talking about doesn't just apply to CEOs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sure.
No,
everything that we're talking applies to every athlete I've ever worked with. I've always said that only a strength athlete and Gen Pop are exactly the same people. One lifts weights.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when the strength athlete gets into their 30s, all the things that Tom would have to do or you would have to do to be able to help them elevate their level is exactly the same things that a Gen Pop person has to do to get into shape. Those are where the issues are. The issues aren't with the training and all that because they're probably already at their genetic ceiling. The issues are the recovery, the mindset, the
fatigue
thinking,
management,
the nutrition, the fatigue management, all those things. It's Gen Pop. Is the personal. They would actually, a lot of these guys would actually be better just doing the same strength program they've always done and hire a good personal trainer. They really would.
It would keep it interesting and keep it fun and so that they can stay with it. But yeah, it comes down to the scheduling.
Well, the trainer is going to come at it from a good trainer is going to come at it from, okay, the training's here, but what's your sleep? What's the hydration?
Exactly.
What's the nutrition?
100%.
Right. Where most of the main strength coaches
worry about the numbers.
Are all numbers, numbers and drugs, but numbers, right? Numbers and drugs, right? So the two things that create the stress, right? Where the the focus is on the things that reduce.
So organizing stress inoculation, understanding fatigue as a whole, identifying these limiters or identifying readiness every day, right? So then you can use, again, objective and subjective indicators too as well, because sometimes like I may be in the red, I'm in the red today, right? We did a hard session yesterday, but it's like, I still have to get the work done. I still have to do the podcast, right? So how do I optimize myself? All right, let's get more hydration, right? Today I woke up, got direct sunlight, did some movement, didn't overly strain myself, but I wanted my brain to be functioning well, right? To be able to articulate my words properly. So with that, you still can do something and you have to identify what you can do that day. And so it allows us to still stay active. And so they're not like, oh, I guess I'm done for the day. This is it. There still should be some progressive action, no matter what position they're in as far as readiness.
I think, and again, another avenue in, as it were, here is like, people always think of nutrition as like the body, but like, if you are someone who is working whatever number of hours a week, like nutrition is cognitive or cerebral too. Like your brain has 4 fuels, basically glucose, oxygen, ketones, and acetylcholine. It's like, well, glucose we can fix with diet. Acetylcholine and ketones are pretty easy supplementation. Oxygen's a fuel right there for your brain. So what helps that? You know, at the end of the day. And then taking away the decisions. But I suppose the question I would also put forward there is, how much time do you waste procrastinating or putting off the things that need doing, but you don't? You know, that's, we can call that willpower. We can call it whatever you want, right? But we know that the willpower or the ability to do hard things is a trainable characteristic. You know, stimulates the anterior cingulate cortex. You going through the fighting and stuff that you do, like, you're painfully aware of how well that can be trained. You know, so what if we can remove, should we call it friction? Or, you know, like, there's this thing I need to do, but oh man, like, I'll just do these other 3 low-lying things because they're still kind of productive, even though it's not the main thing. I make myself feel better. But if we can, through training, or maybe something else that you don't want to do, cold exposure, you know, whatever you don't like, if we can train that characteristic, that part of your personality, well, then all of those things now become lower hanging fruit.
I always tell every athlete or any individual that I work with, let's organize our day beforehand. So I do like to make sure that I prioritize the hardest things to do first in the morning when they're fresh. So we'll take 3 or 4 priorities that need to be hit that day. And what is the goal for that day? So every day we will adjust and obviously organize those factors. And then by the time where they start to wind down, now they can do the lower stem work that allows them they can run through the motions, but still get stuff done. So I would always organize the hardest things to do first. So you get it done and you have that sense of, you know, okay, I accomplished something today. You know, and then that compounds over time. So that week was a very productive week. And so I have my priorities each day. I have my goals each day. What are the main goals that you want to accomplish each week, each month, each quarter? And then that, again, compounds over time. You start looking back, you connect the dots and say, damn, I did a lot this month, this quarter.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the front loading of important things, I think that pays really big dividends more than maybe people think. And I think maybe there's a bit of a pride element. It's like, it's 7 a.m. or 10 a.m., it doesn't matter, right? My day has barely begun. I've already ticked the biggest thing off my to-do list. Like, it makes you feel kind of good about yourself, right? But then I think the other aspect that maybe people don't really think about enough is, like, usually you are cognitively at your best within a couple of hours of waking.
And your pain tolerance is higher.
So and that, when we say pain tolerance, that doesn't necessarily just mean physical either. Like, mental friction, you know, like things you don't want to do require, you know, are less painful, inverted commas, first thing in the morning. And I think, do you set up any kind, I'm curious, do you set up any kind of practice or exercise, you can call it whatever you want, that helps them prioritize these things? Because, you know, in my experience, a lot of these people have 1,000 things to do, but they are just a list of 1,000 things, which is
before you do that.
Right?
Before you answer that, I'm going to lay out exactly what I've been doing for 10 years, right? So in the journal I have, I mean, what is today? Wednesday? I'll have like Wednesday at the top, 1, 2, 3. Over here, I write time. And then under here, I put admin, and then boom, BP for blood pressure, and then reports here. Then before each day starts, I'm looking at whatever has to be done during that month. This 1, 2, and 3 are those big rocks. The admin is all the other shit that I have to be able to get done. And then the reports would be, like, for me, is online sales and then total sales, the biggest rock reports. And then the blood pressure I take throughout the day because I need to track the blood pressure. And if I don't put it in here, I won't finish it. And then over here, if I have personal, I'll have like personal shit, right? So for me, my biggest thing is under this time thing, I want the least amount of things possible. You know, so if I looked at my book in there, it would have said 10:30 pod, 1:30 pod. And, you know, if it was a training day, it'd be like 6 train. And then that's it. And then where I focus is bam. Those 3 things, they have to get done.
Exactly.
Like, then all these things down here, if I'm really strategic, I'll have them like A, B, C, ranked by priority. And then if it's delegated, if it goes to Cassie, it will be Cassie. If it goes to Noah, it goes to Noah, and it will be through there. And then that's done that day before.
Exactly.
Right. And then this is coming from
you're organizing. Master. So there's a book called Organizing Tomorrow Today. And so we typically would use something of that nature, right?
Okay.
And again, so in the mornings, we want to get those things done. But then what I do is I have them organized tomorrow tonight, so that's not actively in their brain while they're going to sleep.
Oh, yeah, I have to do that before I go to sleep. Otherwise, I'm going to be thinking.
Exactly. Another thing is extract all those priorities, put it on paper.
Yeah.
And then you will adjust and pick out what are the main priorities out of all those things that you have to get done. What are some of the things that are time, let's say, sensitive?
That's a good point too. And I'll have Tom elaborate on this because he's big into journaling.
Yep.
My admin task is on my phone, right? But it's also written on paper. The admin task just allows me to throw the shit in there while I'm out and about. That goes on paper. You know, the main objectives go on paper. You know, if I don't write it, it doesn't matter. It's all the phone I use, like To-Do or whatever the fucking app is. It's just to catch the quick stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to not, you know, if I had to pull over to write shit down, then you're going to lose a lot of ideas and stuff like that. Yeah. But the writing it is, I found it's huge.
Have you done voice recording too as well? Like
I'll do it to put into that list, but if I still have to, like in the book, it's going to say, what's this month? March, April? I don't even know what the month is. April, right? Then it's got the big rocks on one side and it's got all the admin on the other. When you own a business, you only know what day it is, right? It just all runs fucking together. Right? And there's the big things that I want to get, and it goes by quarter. I mean, it starts by year. It's basic goal setting brought down, but I'm surprised at how many people don't. And if they do, they're using an app. Right. Which is better than nothing. And I did that. I tried to do that for a long time, but you know how many times all I did was the admin. Yeah. It's easy to hear the ding, ding, and that's satisfactory. Yeah. I get to hit the ding. Yeah. Now at the end of the day, I can hit all the dings because I already crossed them off with the written book. So why is the writing, why does that work better than the digital?
Well, I think first off, if you know how to write, you know how to think. Like we're so depending on apps like spell check and grammar and all that stuff. Like if I'm going to write something down, even if it's notes scribbled, I have to think, how do I structure it on the paper, so on and so forth. The act of thinking through how I write this letter and the next letter requires a lot more thinking than typing on a keyboard. And this is probably too in the weeds, so I apologize.
No, I wanted to.
When we write, being able to read silently is actually a really, really new evolutionary development, because we are not, when you read silently, you're essentially using your eyes as ears because you hear the thing that you're writing. So when you do write and read something silently, actually the part of your brain that's active is right in the middle between the visual field and the auditory field. Both of them are active at the same time, and it's most active right in that fringe there. So you're taking in the information with two different senses at the same time, which means you're considerably more likely to get. You don't. But then if we're writing something as well, what if we got motor control? Yes. So now we're ingraining this thing that we're reading and hearing and looking at the same time as we're creating it. We match it to a motor pattern, and basically your body says, well, look, this is 4 senses, should we say, integrating all at once. This is important. I will remember this. I mean, I'm an asshole and I get people to do it with their non-dominant hand because then you learn faster and it does a lot of other wonderful things. But there's a big reason that learning, you can say what you want about intelligent quota, but there's a reason that average IQ is like dropping generations coming out of school, and that's because we're learning from screens, but we're not built to learn. We haven't evolved to learn to the same level from screens yet.
This is a form of metacognition too as well, right? Thinking to think, or learning how to think. And I think that that's something that a lot of people don't want to do, right? Is they don't want to sit in solitude and actually have to think about their problems.
Yeah, for sure.
And then conceptualizing why am I thinking that way? And so that allows us to write it all down and get it all out on paper so that you can read. You can look at it, like you said, with the learning process, but then you're actually physically having to do that. And then what I also found was good for me, at least, was to listen while I'm reading. Yeah. So maybe it's an audio book and I'm actually reading some type of scripture or something like that. And then I'll actually go ahead and do the thing, right? So having something active, right? So let's just say it's a drill, right? I'm like, okay, write it down, then go drill it, or again go do the thing, and then teach the thing. Yeah, right, and that allows it to stick. Right? From a learning perspective.
Yeah, and I think not enough gets made out of learning to write. Especially, like, say we're talking to the CEO population, for example. It doesn't have to be them, but like, if you know how to write a business proposal, right? If you know how to write it, in a well-structured way that someone else can understand, you know how to think. Because you've had to think through it to the point of understanding where you can lay it out in a logical, structured way.
True.
And if you know how to think, because you know how to write, then you know how to talk, and you know how to formulate arguments.
Yep.
And if we're talking like useful skills, if we're looking at that demographic, is there any more useful skill than being able to speak and structure arguments well?
I mean, for that, that's like top notch.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
you
Like
need to have
that's
that. Yeah.
so like
Or like being able to adjust and articulate to the person that you're talking to.
yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And like, for instance, like if you wanted to go high level, we wanted to talk about, neurophysiology or something of that nature, then we can get on that level. But then if they are talking to somebody else that doesn't have that background, then we have to be able to simplify that enough. It's the same thing with coaching, right?
Yeah,
so
it is.
I can't get into the weeds of jargon and talk about, post-activation potentiation to an athlete that doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
Just this is going to help you be more explosive. Let's do this.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
But I think even then, if we look at that coaching population, I think, let's say you want to be a really good coach. We could probably make an argument, you should write some articles. It's like, well, I don't care about publishing articles. If you can write me an article on plyometrics or dynamic effort work, you understand it well enough that you can write an article on it.
100%.
So now your beginner walks in the gym and your advanced athlete walks in the gym. You probably know it deep enough or at the ground level enough that you can cater to both, I don't know about you, but I find that like writing an article or something, or, I'm knee deep in 2 books right now. Like they're a better exercise for the coach writing them or the person writing them than they are for the people reading them. Cause like you have to be able to understand something to a certain level to be able to do that. And I think
you find your gaps too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Because you'll as you're writing, you realize that there's a step missing. And you gotta go look at the step.
You're auditing it.
But we live in a different world, right? And I use the shit out of AI. So I'll just kind of bring this in here. Tom can validate this. I use the absolute shit out of AI, the dossiers, all this. But let's say with what I have here, which is, the podcast for you, it will pull, it will aggregate, it will do everything it used to take me forever to do. It pulls it all together. That's fine. Until I actually take and look at all that, and then I have to physically write it down, the main points, I will not remember, right? It just gathers the data, right? Where with the articles, because people will send us articles, they're all AI, I can see that they're AI generated, right? Now, if I have an AI set up with all my material, I've been writing for 30 years. I can get it to basically be me, right? And then I can read it and like, yeah, that's me, right? But when newer people are doing it, it's very obvious because there's a whole lot of text that really doesn't say anything, right? And it's maybe it will get there, maybe it won't get there, but they're not going to learn it. Right. And if they're going to coach it, they're going to have to understand.
Of course.
There's a difference between learning, understanding, and wisdom. Right. You can never get to the wisdom if you don't have the understanding over a long period of time. Right. But they are going to do that. So it could be a topic that they want to write on. They're going to use AI to be able to do it. Take whatever the AI put out. This would be my advice. Take whatever the AI put out and then write the outline.
Yes.
And when you write the skeleton of what it put out, tell me if there's substance there. Right. And now if they're halfway intelligent, they're going to see, there's really, this isn't an article, this is a blog. And there's a difference between a blog and an article or whatever. But I think any coach now should be writing just to be able to learn for one thing.
Well, that's not happening at all.
Well, on the other side though, here's why another reason they should be doing it. They need a digital footprint because people are going to search them on a large language model now before they even search Google. So if I go to search somebody on a large language model and nothing populates, they're not in a good spot, if somebody, because everybody's going to vet their coach. I mean, they should, right? So they're going to look on socials. They're going to look on a large language model and they want to see what's going to be pulled up. So if they're not putting like micro blogs or something in their socials for that to be able to pull,
descriptions and
what's it going to pull? Right. So, and it needs to have some substance because people are going to go look.
And they can transcribe videos too as well. So actually physically talking about certain things like these, even podcasts too, they'll transcribe those. But then again, you have to be able to articulate that through that audience and then they can extrapolate that transcribe and put it on there. But I think also is that getting into the weeds of the nuanced details, right? So like as that AI, whether it be ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, kind of gives you that framework, then you have to go in and adjust it according to what you know.
Yeah.
And so even right, like,
well, it doesn't know that.
No.
And it will never know that.
and it's not going to give like real world experience or
Yeah, sure.
let's just say stories that you
Mhm.
had in the past that correlate over to this information that you're trying to.
Well, how many training plans have you had with a person that you didn't have to change one variable
None.
on that day?
Yeah, none.
But I mean, as you've kind of mentioned before, with like, on average, like athletic level performance or the take up of athletic performance in schools is like dropping. And you've said like, well, this is a great time to be someone who wants to be an athlete because you have less competition. But if we're looking at like a strength coach or a CEO, if all of your competition is defaulting to AI, and I don't want to sound overly harsh, but let's say they're not learning the skill of critically thinking and thoroughly thinking, and you are the one who is not defaulting to AI and is writing down business plans and all that, like, you got 3 steps ahead of because at some point you're going to coach a person and you're going to coach in person, or you're going to have a phone call with a client, or you're going to be applying to funding, or you're going to be in a boardroom and you actually have to talk, present your case. And the person who's had AI do everything is they can't get AI to do the presentation for them, right? But so the person's who can critically think and write and so on is going to absolutely wipe the floor.
Yeah. No, I think utilizing it to a degree, right? In training the AI to be appropriate for you, and like they said, having that framework that they lay out, but then you have to make those adjustments, and then you have to practice the thing to actually speak it to as well, right? Especially in a board meeting or something like that, or let's say a seminar or a speaking engagement, but having some level of framework, like a table of contents.
Yeah.
Sure. You go, okay, this is a subject. Cool. I know how to put some things together to make sense for this particular subject, and then go through certain things that you went through, right? Experiences. Experiences are key, right? So every time I talk about a certain subject, I double back to a time where I had to go through it, and that's how I learned from it. Yeah. And that goes back to, I'm always talking about communication because that's what I had to do for the past 20 years in the industry.
Well, communication is the biggest component, because it's, I mean, I'll just ask you guys, you've both been working as coaches and trainers for a long period of time, and you've all absorbed a lot of content that was online, right? Now, when you're speaking to each other, which is offline, and you're just talking about general shit, or any other coaches that you've ever spoken to, have you ever seen any of that online?
As far as the
conversations that you're speaking about, the reality of what's happening. Like, I can speak to other business owners, and it doesn't really matter who we are. We start talking about the challenges that we're all dealing with. They're all the same, but we're not talking about them online, right? And then when you talk to somebody else, you're like, oh, fuck, you're dealing with that too? Yeah, well, I've been doing, and they're all doing that, but we're not all like going out there and saying, hey, look, here's the challenges that we all deal with, because we're dealing with them. We're not thinking about presenting those, because that isn't marketing. What you put online is marketing. What you're doing as a profession is the skill and the service.
But it also depends on who you're marketing to, right? So if I'm talking to other coaches, right? If my goal for that content piece is to talk to coaches to get them involved and maybe do some type of mentorship or coaching.
No, outside of that, you're just, say you guys would go out to lunch, you're just bullshitting and talking about certain stuff. You're going to bring up certain things, but those certain things that you're going to talk about may be too deep in the weeds, or, what it's going to be very super specialized. To be able to have that conversation, to be able to pick somebody else's brain on a nuanced topic that may not even be in the AI to begin with, how you how you regulated this or whatever this was, that troubleshooting, critical thinking skills to be able to come up to that solution. These things don't critically think. They can give answers to a lot of the questions, but those critically thought out problems are the things that you would all discuss. Or if I'm with another business owner, we're the things that we're discussing.
You're saying that you're not seeing that on social right now?
You don't see it anywhere because it's not talked about, because I don't want to say it's intimate and private and all this other kind of stuff. We all think it doesn't matter. And we all think the other people aren't dealing with the same situations that we're dealing with, or they're not. I'll use an example, trying to figure out what the ROI is for a company on social posts, right? somebody may say, yeah, they know the solution, but I will find every business owner I know, and every one of them's going to say, nope, fuck, we ain't figured it out either.
No.
Except that one marketing hack with a 90-second fucking clip that's going to post on Instagram that has all the answers to be able to do it. So who am I going to believe? The marketing hack, you know, or the business owners that have been around for 10 years and we're all like, fuck you too? Now I don't feel that bad. Like maybe I need to look at, that's what I'm talking about, right? And you're going to see the same thing across all different professions. AI is never going to know that because that's critical thinking, that's troubleshooting, that's working things through, trying to figure things out that it hasn't figured out, because it can only figure out the things that other people have already figured out and put online.
But I think that's where like podcasts like this, like long form, like in a world where everything is getting shorter and shorter, like i.e. TikTok or whatever, right? That everything is going that way, but there's a demographic also where like long form conversations like this that have no specified time frame are also doing incredibly well. And it's because when you remove that 60-second time limit, you can have those types of conversations where you and I can go back and forth for an hour, and I might think, oh, well, I've been doing that wrong. I've learned something. You've learned something. We have like this almost like back and forth development of each other's mindset and knowledge, which can't happen in 60 seconds. But I think the most important thing that comes out of that is what other people can understand from it is not what's Phil's system, what's Dave's system. It's what's the process Phil and Dave used to get to their system. What is the thought processes? What are they doing day to day, week to week that allowed them to develop their, and you know, that doesn't matter whether it's training or business, whatever. That's the real mechanism that people need to learn, not like, because we all know you can look at like a Flex magazine and be like, oh, what's this IFBB Pro doing? It's like, that's irrelevant. What they did to get to that program.
Bro, we were just talking about this yesterday. Yeah. It's like a lot of people want to get the sauce now on like what Michael Jordan did at his peak of his career. And so that's what these kids are doing in high school, but they didn't look at what he did in high school.
You know what's weird with that? Because I was just, last week I can't remember who I was speaking to, but he's been on YouTube for a long time. He's doing fairly well on YouTube. You can go back to his first video. Like, go look at your first video.
I know.
Right? You people can now go back and see, you know, what somebody's journey actually was. Hey guys, I just wanted to take a moment because we do read the comments, and one of them that keeps popping up more frequently than not is, I can't believe this video doesn't get more views. Take a minute to subscribe, leave a comment, and share. It really does help.
The more intelligent ones, the ones that really want to learn on a deeper level, they will go back there, right? Because they want to see the how he organized it to get to that level, right? And then where or who, or you know, it doesn't matter, he or she or whatever. But then the ones that just want a quick fix, they're gonna go to the last video. They're just like, oh, I just need the sauce now.
Well, we also want them to go to the last video. So
algorithm.
True. Yeah, make sure we get those out.
Yeah, click them all, by the way.
Exactly. But make sure you do the whole thing, right? So the ones that really want to dissect and learn on a deeper level, they will make the attempt to go find out where was the origin, where did it start, and then slowly start to almost reverse engineer your process based on what that person that you look up to has been through, right? So we look at, you look at your history and you go, if I'm a business owner looking to start up an equipment company, I'm going to look at what Dave did in the beginning and see what happened over time. And so they'll learn from your mistakes and they'll learn from your wins. And that will allow them to be better than you because they're learning from those mistakes. They're learning from your wins. The problem is that people think that they are already above that. And they haven't even done anything.
Well, the other dicey thing with that too, if we're speaking businesses, the biggest mistakes are not going to be put out there, nor are the biggest wins, right? But they'll be discussed if you know how to communicate with people that are in the same domain, right?
That takes effort to reach out to that individual and to have a full transparency.
Well, be okay losing then.
Or getting rejected.
I mean, another example of the things that it's that doesn't really get talked about, that's true across the board, is 5 years, what is it, in 2019, I was speaking to somebody and they used imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the fuck it was.
Yeah.
Like I had to like look up what this even was. Right. And I'm like, oh, that thing everybody has. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody I know, everybody, right, has this imposter syndrome. Right. But then somebody will see that and be like, oh, this is why I can't do what I'm supposed to do. And why they aspire to be like this person who they assume does not have that. When they do.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
They wouldn't be where they're at.
Yeah, but I had to look up what the fuck it even was. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's not part of these. You see what I'm saying? So like that real shit isn't really part of that unless you're networking with people.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, you need to have that interaction. That's why like doing conferences and going to these networking events or just reaching out to somebody that you know through social or whatever and trust, and like trust and really respect too as well.
Sure.
Like the first time I reached out to Joe DeFranco, which was like, I was like 22 years old. And I was asking him like, what did you do at this particular time with this athlete? Because he didn't want to follow this particular aspect of the training. And he gave me the right advice, because I created the initiative to go ahead and actually physically call him.
Yeah.
Because I could have looked up online or whatever, but it's not going to go into the weeds and it's not going to be as subjective.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to give him the actual the thing so I can get some.
On that note, like for someone like yourself who is very successful, did you ever feel completely ready for any of the big steps that have happened to you in the last, say 10 years?
Never. No.
Is there such thing as 100% ready,
No, I think that I was confident in my preparation and in like my experiences, but also I'm willing to identify my weak points and be humble enough to know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And so that allows me to grow and not have this level of insecurity towards the actual thing, but figuring out what is truly going to be the thing that's going to help you evolve. And that comes down to humility, right? Because a lot of people don't want to work on the things that they suck at.
Yeah.
And that's
you said something earlier that I got to throw out there. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I'm curious. And because you're talking about people reaching out. So in say 2017, 2018, if your DMs on Instagram or anything like mine, it's a lot. It was a lot. What is it now?
It's a lot. I can't get to them all, which is it's tough. But
mine's about 80% less.
Really?
Yeah. So yours is still.
It's still up there.
Oh, it's still up there.
Yeah. And it transferred from only combat sports to now coaching, even relationships, things of that nature. I think it's just the content that you produce.
I think it'd be an interesting question to start asking people that have been around a little bit, because it is an indicator to see if people are reaching out or not reaching out. You get that's why I was curious to ask.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think because I've always been open to answering these questions, and then you get multiple questions from the same person. So they've asked like 5 years in a row or something like that, and it's like, okay.
Sometimes people can get obnoxious. I don't want to turn people off, but
100%.
Yeah,
100%. At that point, you just got to be like, all right, man, thanks. Just, like them, like the comment, and go from there. But I always, now that we have so much content out there, a lot of the questions can be answered through the content that I've created.
Yeah.
So then I'll send them a link or I'll send them an article or something like that. And it allows it to answer the question and not just blow it off, but it doesn't take a lot of time. And then allows for the
I'm glad you said that, because a lot of coaches will get frustrated.
Yeah.
Because,
same question.
Because it's the same question, but it's the first time that person's ever asked, and they may not know that you already made this, especially if you got a channel with 4,000 videos.
Well, here's the thing. So, So like, at that point, that's why I'm happy that I put the content out, so that, okay, now I can reference that content. And if it does get asked frequently, that's the content that I'm going to produce.
Yeah.
Sure. So if I get a question over and over again, okay, this is a common problem. Let's figure out how I can, solve the problem to a degree to the masses, and then be able to send them over that information.
You mentioned they're getting DMs about like relationships and stuff like that. Is that because you're being like more open about like your spirituality and things like that?
Yeah.
As a coach, how do you feel about people reaching out for help like that?
I love it. I mean, that's truly why I'm here.
Yeah.
And it's to get people closer to God and to their purpose.
Sure.
And so if they're willing to reach out or need some advice on it, now I'm not like an expert in this thing. It's just my experiences. So I'm only going to go off of my experiences and what I've been able to utilize, right? And to fully involve myself in. Now, even when it comes down to fatherhood, you know, being a husband, having, you know, everybody has a different, you know, they have different experiences with their significant others. You know, my experiences have always been great. So I can't really go off of anything else that some people have said. Now I can do this. I can say, listen, just make the attempt. Be always trying to evolve as a human being, as a man, as a spouse. Typically it's young men in their like 20s and 30s, you know? And I think that I try to correlate a lot of my information on that front to the weight room, to the things that I've specialized in, so that there is some understanding and some correlation to the advice I'm going to give them.
Yeah, sure. Because it's reasonably common, I would say, to hear coaches say comments like, "Oh man, I feel like this person's psychologist at times," and I'm kind of like, "Yeah." Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's someone who is operating at your level. Is happy to get questions like that and wants to help. To me, that shows the intent of the person. You know, like I assume you got into what you do because you like helping people, and sometimes that stuff is actually the most important things that you can help help people with. And if you're like, oh, I'm just a strength coach, I don't want to help you with that stuff, to me it makes the whole thing less rewarding if you're shut off to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like, yes, I can teach you how to get stronger, get more powerful, get more conditioned, but if I can get you to be a better human, that's just a higher level of purpose. And so if I can figure out a way to correlate that over into, maybe you can conceptualize it now because you understand the weight room or you understand being an athlete, how you do that and how you take that over into your family life when you're creating a family, when you're trying to be a leader. So if you're an athlete and you've been a captain on all your teams, it's a similar aspect. You're leading by example. And a lot of times it isn't what you say, it is what you do. So I try to, even with the content that I do, it's more about showcasing leadership qualities and having virtue and values that are being transcended, I guess you would say, towards those people that need that advice. And you just live in that same virtue and value and don't deviate, because character is everything. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about, you know, inner circle wise, your inner circle, they don't need to have the same, you know, let's just say they don't need to have the same things that you have, or they don't need to be in the same position you're at, but as long as they have good character and you guys evolve together or grow together, right? They don't even need to have the same like specialities or skills, right? But if they have great character and they have great values and they're living virtuously, then that's a person that you want to be around, right? If they're not doing those things, then you have one or two options. One, you can cut them out, or you can try to get them up to that level, but don't let it put you in a position to where you're getting dragged down by those people.
Do you think it's easier for you to make that type of connection coming from a martial arts background? I say that purely because generally speaking in martial arts, there's a bigger emphasis on in like personal development, character development within martial arts than there is, say, like someone who gets into weightlifting in the gym. Do you think that's something that's missing from that world and should be emphasized more?
In the strength world?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But because it's just so one-dimensional, it's like lift a weight or not, you know? But if you look at it from even Dave's perspective, they attack the bar like it was an opponent. So you put yourself in a mind frame of a warrior, and your opponent, or, you know, the adversary or whoever it is that weight on the bar. So if you can put yourself in that mind frame, you become a martial artist in that, I guess you would say, in the circumstances of inside the weight room, you can still correlate that over into an actual battle. Right? Because you can either lift the weight or you can't, or it's going to, you know, you're going to either get the lift or it's going to crumple you. And so when you attack it, but then there has to be some level of excitement and some level of fear too as well. The fear of the unknown, having anxiety of, yo, I'm going to go ahead and try to hit this PR. If not, I'm probably going to damage myself. And what's the biggest fear that people have is dying. And that's it. But if you can reframe that fear to allow you to prepare accordingly, it's the same thing with the ruck. I needed to have something that was big enough, that was giving me that fear to prepare accordingly. And the same thing goes with fighters. They need to have an opponent that's going to get them out of bed. Otherwise, they're not going to prepare accordingly. And ultimately, they're not going to give their best. And that's not going to evolve them as an individual either. So you need to have something that is going to stress you that is going to allow you to identify those weak points and then prepare accordingly.
I gotta ask you. This is a very philosophical question, so I apologize.
It's good.
I
Let's get into it.
I want to ask you.
Yeah.
So there's a saying in Shaolin Buddhism, which is Guai Shou Fo Jin, which is demon hand, Buddha heart. And the idea is that to be the most honorable person or good person that you can be, you need to be capable of great harm or bad or evil, whatever, demon hand, and choose not to use it. Buddha heart, right? Because it means nothing to be helpless but not do any harm. Right? Because you can't do any harm even if you want to. Whereas if you're well-mannered, but also not aggressive in any way, then you're just going to get taken advantage of and life's going to chew you up and spit you out. So if we go off that premise, is it possible that like when you were interacting with, say, these very high-level martial artists, like people who are capable of inflicting great harm or evil on people and choosing not to use it, is that one of the most honorable paths or good paths that one can choose?
Absolutely. So, for instance, I've gotten to a lot of street fights as a kid since I was young, right? Growing up in the neighborhoods I grew up in. The moment I started to really adopt the martial arts aspect of my life and train too as well consistently, I never got into any other altercations outside of the actual training room because I didn't want to. I didn't feel the need to. I had confidence in myself. The most peaceful people that I've ever come in contact with are the most dangerous people, right? From my tactical operators at the tier 1 level to my elite fighters, the most peaceful, non-confrontational people that you'll ever meet. Boss Rutan is one that comes to mind. Boss Rutan is a legitimate killer when it comes down to actually being able to handle himself, but the nicest guy ever, right? Pray with you, sit with you, talk with you. But if something pops off, you know that he can handle any situation. And that's what is going to allow young men in particular to be as virtuous as possible throughout their daily activities, knowing that they can handle themselves in any situation, but not going after that problem. Being like, okay, what's the best way that I can get out of this situation and not cause anyone harm? Because I know if I do, it's going to be bad.
Do you think we can make a parallel? Obviously, there's an obvious physical element to that, right? Like you can defend yourself if need be and so. But do you think we can also make you're dealing with a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs and stuff like that now. Can we also make an argument for that perhaps on the intellectual front as well? Like you are capable of being an absolute monster in the boardroom, for example, like capable of tearing someone apart with arguments, logic or whatever. But then you don't have to use it because you present yourself well and logically and so on. Like there's a certain level, I would assume there's a certain level of peace and confidence that comes from that physical, like I know I can defend myself and my family if I need to, but I don't get myself ensnared. There's probably a similar level of peace and confidence that comes in that realm too, I would imagine, where like if you're that capable and choose, but then don't have to use it, there's something to that maybe helps deal with all that anxiety that kind of Dave was talking about.
That's why you want to always constantly evolve your mindset and then figure out what are some of the things that you need to improve on, especially when it comes down to articulation, when it comes down to identifying weak points, and then looking at what are the skills that you can acquire to improve your business. Because when you feel more equipped, when you feel more capable, you don't really have to show it all the time, right? You know you're strong. You don't have to say that I'm strong, puff up my chest. I know if I have 600, 700, 800 pounds on the bar, I'm lifting it. So I don't have to showcase, pump up your chest and walk around like I'm the big man on campus. It's like, I already know it. So why have no ability or no want to actually showcase this in real life?
So is that that intrinsic motivator, like, is that the type of thing that motivates a person to say ruck 150 miles for the way it's done? It's to know that you could.
Yes.
Like, why bother climbing Everest? Right? Because
we might have to do that.
No, but it's because it's there to be done. Do you know what I mean? Do you think that's part of it? It's just like, I want to know that whatever challenge comes up in 100%. Life, I could do it. And it doesn't matter whether it's an MMA fight, a weighted ruck, or whatever your next zany challenge is. Like, was it being tased whilst you train?
Yeah.
Or whatever, right? Yeah. Doesn't matter. I just want to know.
Well, that's funny. So that one was an interesting one because with that was a drill that Frank had me do, and he said,
"Did you see that?" Okay.
Yeah. So Frank's an animal, by the way. He's crazy.
Oh, it seems, yeah.
He's an animal. So what we do is it's just, again, we're producing some level of stress and fatigue and being able to carry out a skill or carry out some type of tactical execution while still having this on the side, thinking, okay, if I mess this up, I'm going to have there's going to be some detrimental issues going to happen, right? So I said to myself, listen, I can control this. If I can control this, then I won't get tased. So he's like, just control the tire when, slamming the tire or whatever. I'm like, but it's in my control because I have the abilities to control it. So now anxiety goes out the window because it is in my control. So if I can control all the variables, when we walk into the gym or when I walk into a restaurant, I put my back to the door. So I control the variables, right? So now, all right, less anxiety, less fear of danger, right? And I can enjoy my time doing the thing, right? Or having, time with your family. With people that don't have those capabilities, their anxiety is high. And so stress is high. And so they act off of emotion because they don't know what they don't know. So now they're in a position like a lot of people that get into crowds and they're like, I'm uneasy, right? Because I don't know what I can do if something does pop off. But if you do have that understanding, then you can live your life happy and free to a degree because you're disciplined enough to know, okay, I can execute if I need to.
Sure. So do you think that, maybe going back to what Dave was talking about, like the average business person, whatever, who's got all these anxiety problems, 1,000 problems running around their head at 11 o'clock at night. Do you think that, it's basically a scenario where the more problems you learn to fix, the more confident you get in your ability to
100%.
fix problems.
Yep.
And something like weight training or whatever, whatever it is they want to do, gives you a whole set of problems that you can fix bit by bit, which builds the confidence that, well, if I can fix problems over here, there's no reason I can't fix problems over here.
Exactly.
And do you think that's maybe possibly like one of the biggest, like not spoken about benefits of doing these other things, whether it's training or whatever, like to build that confidence in problem solving?
I like to articulate that to those individuals too as well. Like if you can handle, going through some difficult, arduous task on a daily basis, then problem solving is nothing for you.
Yeah.
And the more problems you solve, the more confidence you gain, right? So like having order and having responsibility and then being obedient to yourself too as well, like not, and it comes down even with diet, right? Just being more disciplined in the sense of I'm not going to eat that cupcake or I'm not going to eat that donut or whatever, because it takes away from my goals. And so when an opportunity comes up to where you need to make a quality decision based off of logic instead of emotion, you're able to do that because you know that you've done it before over and over again with these small little hits, right? They're just like little stress inoculations or friction that you can create for yourself that allows you to gain more confidence for the bigger things. So doing like even running, getting up 5 a.m. This is why we as fighters, we run in the morning because we know that we have a jump start on the day because we don't want to do this. Like if it's cold, it's raining out, like you don't want to put your shoes on and go run, especially when you got 3 other training sessions that day. But because you know that you've gained a win in the beginning of the day, and plus you're doing things that you don't want to do, but you know you have to do, it allows you to be more competent and confident of your approach.
That's a hard sell though, right? It's like, well, coach, why should I do this thing? Because it's hard and you don't want to do it.
Exactly.
It's a terrible marketing trick, right?
Shit. But the ones that want to evolve and achieve great things, they understand that process. And the ones that we work with know that's what it needs to, that's what it's going to take. But it takes an individual outside of them to hold them accountable to it. Sure. And to go and put a mirror up on them. Like, didn't you say you wanted this? Well, here it is. This is the hard part. Yeah. You're getting up now at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it is, just because it is hard. It's because you don't want to do it. And that's why you have to do it. That's perfect.
No, were there any topics you wanted to go over I didn't bring up?
We covered a lot. We carried a lot. I think that there was, the one thing that I want to relay over is like, with me, I'm looking at my days now as what is going to be the most important thing for me to do that is going to help others. And so if it comes down to me having to learn a little bit more on certain details, and I think that a lot of people stop progressing because they don't know what they don't know, or they don't want to learn things that they suck at. So my advice to those individuals is to put yourself in those positions to where you can identify those weak links, but you're going to have to test yourself. And so constantly testing through things like what I do from a physical standpoint, but also from a psychological standpoint, or let's say from a business standpoint, all right, maybe I don't know all I need to know about financials or law or something of that nature. Now seek out that advice. Stop thinking that you know it all, or stop thinking that you're good and you're being complacent. Always try to evolve, because that's what living is. And each day you have to live. And if you live every day in accordance to your virtues and values, you're going to progress. And it gives you that purpose, right? So what is purpose? And for me, a very important person in my life asked me this question, and I had no real answer to it. I had a baseline answer. It was like, leave a legacy, do this, do that, be known for what I'm doing. He's like, man, your real true purpose is to know and love God, right? And so with love is to will the good of the other. And so if I can do that on a constant basis, so I have love for you because I want you to do good. And what's the ultimate good? God. God is omnipresent, omnipotent, and he wants you to do good. So how do I do good? Well, I'm going to live virtuously. I'm going to provide information and things that I can do from the talents that I've gained or from what was given, and then the skills that I've acquired through the talent that was given to me. So finding out what is your true talent. And you got to peel back the layers on that. You may think it's like, oh, I can lift some weights or I'm strong, but really what made you be strong? Was it your ability to stay consistent? Was it your ability to identify weak points or have a strategy or organize your thoughts appropriately? And then from there, you want to teach people how to do that. And so that's why the ultimate thing for me is to teach others how to be better people. And you can do that through these avenues of, maybe it's strength training, maybe it's martial arts, maybe it's whatever, but find that first. Peel back those layers, figure out what is your root talent, and then you can organize skills around that,
Yeah. On that note, I had heard a really good quote from a rabbi on a podcast, on whose name I can't remember. I apologize, but he was talking about essentially that same sentiment. And what do you say to the atheists and stuff like God? And his answer was simply, do you believe that you exist for something more than yourself? And the answer is who answers no to that? Like very few, right? People will say, no, there is a bigger purpose, a greater mean, whatever. He's like, well, there you go. That's it. You can call it whatever you want, right? But there's a greater purpose than yourself to be here. Serve that thing, whatever that thing you want to call that thing. You can argue. People have argued over that for thousands of years, right? But like, the name you put on it is irrelevant. We all know it's there. Aim at that, and I think I'm on the right line there. Where that's essentially what you're talking. Which I very much like that.
Yeah, we can get into that a little bit, but there has to be a cause, right? And the ultimate cause is the uncaused cause. And so that's more of a theological perspective. We can go into like St. Thomas Aquinas style, but I've always thought like, all right, let's go to the root, right? So like, how did all of this come about? You created it. Somebody created that, but who created that person? And then you keep going down the line. You go, well, there has to be an ultimate creator. Yeah. So if I'm going to do the things that I need to do in order for me to glorify God, I need to be a creator, and I need to be someone who puts people in a position to create.
Sure.
Right. And how do I do that? Well, I can teach them, right? I can give them some type of skill, or I can showcase some type of talent that they thought they'd never had. So it's, again, putting that mirror to them. When it comes down to CEOs and founders and, business owners, things like that, they've created something, and they created a community, they created a culture. And so they have to stay in that mind frame of, how do I create more? Well, how do you create more? Well, you have to figure out what is the thing that allows you to create. And that comes down to talent and skill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, as a coach, we look to progress people. We want them to reach their ultimate goal. So first, without giving them the X's and O's of like, here's your sets and reps and everything else, let's figure out what is their true goal. What's their vision for themselves? And then you can reverse engineer through all the X's and O's. But coaching is not just about programming. It's not just about here's your exercises. It's about how can I put them in the right position to get them to the end goal and showcase why they're doing what they're doing on a grander scale.
Yeah.
And for athletes, it is winning world titles and, maybe hitting PRs or something like that. But why do you want to do that? What makes you feel like that's important to you?
Sure.
And then you peel back the layers and you go, oh, so you want to feel important. You want to feel confident. You want to feel like you're achieving something. How does that make you feel? Well, I want to achieve because I want to be a better person. Why do you want to be a better person? Well, because I feel like that's going to create happiness. Well, creating happiness is one, you have to have joy in what you're doing. You have to have meaning in your life, and you want to be satisfied. So I'm not searching for happiness. It's a pursuit, but I want to make sure I'm ticking the boxes of meaning, satisfaction, and joyful living. So
well said.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any final thoughts? I mean, those are kind of good final thoughts right there.
So the biggest thing that I would say is always ask yourself each day, what is the most important thing that I need to do today that is going to get me to a point where I'm living in true purpose? So one, you have to be willing to accept the things that are out of your control. Two, you have to put yourself in a perspective of things are going to come up that are going to be uncomfortable today. Being able to attack the day by knowing that you're going to have to solve some problems. We solve problems every second, every hour of the day. It's natural. So being competent and being willing enough to solve those problems and not shut yourself down, because that's living. And then the other thing would be making sure that you pursue the end goal through actions that are still in line with your character. Because a lot of people tend to basically sell themselves because they want more money, they want more fame. But is that really living in true virtue and values that you want to carry over to people that you are looking to lead? So live in that sense. Every time that you come up with when you get older and you start to develop some success, new opportunities come. But are those opportunities something that is going to carry virtue? Or is that something that you're just, again, selling yourself towards because you want some type of satisfaction towards it? That's not in line with character. So just think about that every day and you'll live in a good state.
What's the best way people can find you?
Instagram is probably the best one. Daru Strong. YouTube is Phil Daru Strong. I think it is. Yeah. I don't even remember anymore.
We'll put the links in the
description. Please do that. You know how this goes, man.
All right. It's great catching up, man.
Yeah,
so
honestly.
thank you for coming out again, Tom.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
We're done.
All right.